Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Leary in motion. The throw goes the other way. Mechie's in. Alabama wins in 4 overtimes.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
First down throw. Smith and Jigba's open. And again, Stroud drops it in. Stiff arm all the way to the end zone. Touchdown, Jackson Smith and Jigba.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Prescott rolling, going the other way, looking, gonna run it in. He's in. Touchdown, Dallas.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go. What I like about Mondays right now in the month of August is we're another week into or closer to the 2022 college football season. Yes, there's news and notes and even an update from Oklahoma and head coach Brent Venables on the resignation of a longtime Oklahoma Sooner player and also, a coach in Cale Gundy. The college football top 25 coaches poll is out. We'll dig into that. Nicole Arbach with a note or two about the Big Ten. And then also SMU has started the Boulevard Collective. And that right there is also something we'll let you look at and digest and get feedback from you as well.
You misspoke, but you didn't misspeak because Cale Gundy played at Oklahoma, and he was a longtime coach. So he was a player and former player at that, but now also a former coach after a very long time in Norman, Oklahoma.
Well, yesterday evening, Paul, I don't know if it was you or Craig, one of the two said, whoa, and he sent me the I guess, Cale Gundy's resignation. This should, because before, hold on here. There was so much, wait a minute, if he just said it once again, everyone can debate that, whatever was said, I think we all know. But just now, Oklahoma released this statement from Brent Venables, who we had one earlier. This is the latest one from Brent Venables, because I am sure Oklahoma fans are trying to figure out what in the heck is going on, and and people who want to defend Cale Gundy, and that's fine, but here is it. As painful it has been dealing with Coach Gundy resigning from the program, it doesn't touch the experience of pain felt by a room full of young men, and I am charged to protect, lead, and love. There are a few things I would like to address. Coach Gundy resigned from the program because he knows what he did was wrong. He chose to read aloud to his players, not once, but multiple times, a racially charged word that is objectionable to everyone and does not reflect the attitude, values of our university or program. This is not acceptable, period. He goes on to mention again that he did the right thing by resigning, how it has affected the Oklahoma family. Again, his resignation was the right thing to do. We will move forward positively, and that's from Brent Venables.
Well, I think this needs a little context because we haven't really set that for everybody out there listening, although the people who listen to our show probably pay attention pretty closely to all college football news. But randomly last night, Oklahoma had Cale Gundy come out and say that he was stepping down basically, and it just sort of caught on like wildfire, a statement that he had put together. And in his statement, which is already now being contradicted by Brent Venables' statement, he said that he grabbed a player's iPad basically and just wasn't paying attention and read off a word that he shouldn't have said. But he said nothing along the lines of saying it multiple times like Brent Venables just pointed out. So there alone is a pretty major difference in what you thought last night and what you think now after reading what Brent Venables, because that's a totally different thing right there. It's one thing, and even then I could still see where picking up an iPad or a phone and reading a word, which, you know, it's just, you don't do that. Don't say something out loud if you're just reading it for the first time, and like, pay attention to what you're doing. For one, I can sort of see that. But the multiple times thing that Brent Venables just said, that's a different story. That's intentional, and you can't deny that.
And coaches all over the place do these things when a player isn't paying attention. They try to make an example of him and mock him a little bit. But the minute he got to the first one, he should have been like, okay, I made my point here, and stopped. But clearly reading it multiple times means he didn't realize it probably until he was done. And yeah, I mean, you can't make those kind of mistakes, because once that genie's out of the bottle, you don't really get to direct how it gets put back in. Because what you can say is, well, I was just reading off the iPad. And then if I was a player, I'd be like, well, why did you read it more than once? Like, once you hit it the first time, you should have backed up and said, oh, hey, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. But then he kept going and going.
I don't know when this was. I don't know if it was at a team meeting on Friday, Saturday. Was it Sunday? Lester Lee, why did Venables keep him for that long? I don't know when the actual meeting was, because I haven't been in the middle of it. But that right there, that release, that statement from Brent Venables says quite a bit more. And Cale Gundy even tried to be somewhat open about it. But
It happened last week is when it happened, because it says it in Cale Gundy's statement. He said yesterday that he owed it to be transparent. He said, today with great anguish, I announced my resignation. So that was last night. But then if you go down and do his statement, he said, where is it? I noticed the player is distracted, the words displayed. I just had it in front of me. But he said he's last week during a film session, I instructed my players to take notes. I noticed the player was distracted and picked up his iPad and read aloud the words that were written on the screen. So last week this happened. So I'm sure, that's not one of those things. I mean, you got to get the sides of the story to see, okay, like what was again, context is important. Now, granted, given the subject matter, saying it once, even if on accident, that's going to get you fired in a lot of places. I mean, no matter what, no matter how long tenured you are. But I think that you dig further into it and you see, okay, it turns out you said it multiple times. And that wasn't an accident, clearly, to say it multiple times accidentally. Well, that's a different, and that's why you look into it. And I don't know what took them days to look into, but I don't know. That'll come out, I'm sure. But the fact of the matter is, it only took them a few days to figure out what actually happened and figure out that was enough to fire a guy who's been there with them since 1994 and has been a absolutely massive piece to the overall puzzle in Norman, whether you're talking whatever era going back to then. I mean, but especially Stoops. And now you really thought, and then Riley as well, and then you thought he was going to be a massive piece of what, Brent Venables was about to do. So this is a huge loss for Oklahoma. Now, this is not one of those where you're like, oh, well, they'll never win again. This isn't that. But, man, it still is a big loss. And they were just fresh off of a stretch where they were red hot in recruiting. Everybody was starting to feel good about, what was going on. And I'm sure they still feel great about this season because their wide receivers will still play well and all that. But this, I think in recruiting especially, this is just like, oh, my gosh, really? Like this? Because it's not even, you paid for a guy's plane ticket or something. That would have been better. You clearly said something really off the rails that you can't say. And, I already see one of UT's big wide receiver commits. He's out there. My coach would never. Saying stuff like that on Twitter. So, yeah, it's going to be used that way, I'm sure. And, man, just shocking to see that come out of nowhere last night, especially with, as I said, how great things have felt around Norman here as of late, especially.
So that happened late yesterday evening with his release, the statement of his resignation, and we got more clarity just now within the last half hour or so from Brent Venables. There are still a lot of questions that some of you have, and you can ask us those. 254-339-1122. Also, the chat room. I would like to know who the player was. Is he still on the team? This shows the strength of the player and the age of the transfer portal. Here's another one. Is the player being released for having the language on his iPad? And then there's a few others that said, why did it take so long for Venables to react in the first place? If, in fact, whatever last week was it Tuesday, Monday, whatever.
I mean,
John Hoover's going to join us, who covers Oklahoma, at 3:30 today to kind of give us his
It could have been
latest.
Friday.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, if it was Friday, then are we really going to go like, oh my gosh, it took them I mean, I understand where people are coming from, but I also already feel that, like, let's blow this and amplify this up as much as possible and get real tedious over, like, oh, it took you 3 days to just, I mean, like, we don't know anything other than what two statements have said. So, and we don't even know exactly what he said, but we can kind of probably figure pretty close to the ballpark of what he said, right? And so, yeah, I mean, we'd obviously need to know more, but no, we do not know when he said this or what exactly, and it doesn't matter what exactly he said because it was enough to get him fired. That's very clear. But, yeah, last week is all that's said in the initial statement.
And there's a few others. In fact, I can't believe Oklahoma forced a coach to resign like that. Then – after hearing Venable's statement, Dr. Gatt said, oh, no, that brings more clarifications to it as well.
And I thought, in this day and age, I mean, that's just such a lightning rod for starters. I mean, you can't slip up and say things like, whatever it is that he said, clearly. But, yeah, then to see it initially and to say, oh, he picked up an iPad and read it off, I still just, in this current climate, I'm like, okay, that's still not, like, you're still going to get in trouble for that. I mean, it doesn't matter how accidental it was. But then, yeah, seeing Venable say that it was pretty clearly intentional, that he said it multiple times, like, yeah, there's no excuse for that. There's absolutely zero excuse for that.
From Tide Guy, coach loses job, players should lose scholarship. Whoever wrote it, if they belong to OU, they need to be kicked out for writing it as well. Still don't know completely the context of exactly what was on it. From Tony, OU's human resources and lawyers would have been brought in. Doing it this fast is actually stunning.
There you go.
Okay, Tony, thank you for Tony Altimore for the chat room comment as well. John Hoover again, SI.com will join us at 3:30.
That's definitely HR getting a call. So, yeah, that's definitely where it's going to happen.
As far as the player, we don't know. And we don't know if this is a player that might already be in the doghouse for sleeping on the, and not paying attention, which is maybe why we don't know anything about who the player was or what anything like that. So, not to
could have been a text message sent to him or something. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah, not to unburden the player at all, because I'm sure he bears responsibility for not paying attention in the film session. But the coach should also have more discretion than the player.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, no,
I mean,
he's the adults.
That's why.
So a lot of you already, here we go, almost nearly 400 watching. We'd love to get that number up higher, but we want you to be here, focused. Let us know how you feel. The chat room, we appreciate all of you as well. ESPNU's Full Ride, according to Lemansky, and we'll hear from John Hoover again, reported that Coach actually read a rap song on an iPad. So whatever was read, what the word we all, I think, know. I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm an idiot because last week I was reading from, I don't remember if it was a text or a chat room comment or whatever, and I'm reading along. And the word that I read, just because I was reading it, and the last word was a word that I shouldn't use. It was not a racial type note, but it was something that was demeaning. You both got on me pretty quickly, as I wasn't paying enough attention. So Cale Gundy, obviously, we don't know the details, but we do appreciate all of you right there. Hit the like button if you can. We appreciate all of you for being a part of what we do. Also today at 4:30, Bob Thompson, longtime television executive, has negotiated television contract, grant of rights, and all of that with the Big 8 back in the day, the Big 12, the Pac-12, the ACC, I think even once with the Big 10, the Mountain West Conference, the American Conference, will join us at 4:30 from the Thompson Sports Group on what are his thoughts about all of that's being done right now, and really what does go on, what is said, what are the keys when it comes to what's happening with realignment and all the negotiations. The Pac-12 thing is up. The Big Ten is about to be announced at some point, and on and on. And, of course, the Big 12 has a couple of more years left on there. Lee Buttercup, Smokey, okay, but you wouldn't have made it that mistake multiple times. No, I was wrong to make it the first time. I used a term that was offensive, and I knew it immediately, and I apologize for it as well. Now, here is the top 25. The coaches poll is out. This is basically from the USA Today, the coaches poll. Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, Notre Dame. All the way through 10. Michigan, A&M, Utah, Oklahoma 9, and Baylor 10. So there's Baylor and Oklahoma from the Big 12 in the top 10. To the next 10. And Alabama had 54 votes. Nobody else had more than 6. There's another Big 12 team in Oklahoma State, Oregon. NC State will have a writer who covers the Wolfpack tomorrow. Michigan State, Southern Cal 15. There's the Lincoln Riley bump. Pittsburgh, have that opening game, is that right, against West Virginia? Miami at 17. Texas at 18. Look to the third column. No wins, no losses, 383 votes, and the third column is a 1. A coach put Texas at number 1, and whoever that is, he's kind of getting blasted for that. And who knows who it might be? Opponent? Someone that just said, okay, Wake Forest at 19, had a great year last year. Wisconsin, 20. Then Kentucky, future Big 12 member Cincinnati. There's Arkansas, Ole Miss, and future Big 12 Houston at 25.
Yeah, I tweeted about this earlier on Texas, and I think I've said it before, but I'm not doing this to dog Texas. I'm going to say that right off the bat. I know that might sound disingenuous, but it's true. Just let them get there. We like Steve Sarkisian. Like Craig and I had this after we interviewed him last year at Big 12 meetings. We had this look at each other and we were like, "Oh crap, he's great." And because when you build up Texas as a villain in your head, when they have someone you're rooting for as the head coach, it makes it hard to keep that villain at the same status. So for Texas's sake, for everybody I know and love who is a Longhorn alum or fan, I would just like them to let it grow naturally. You don't get an apple orchard from one seed, man. You got to really let the crop grow. But they keep wanting to be all of a sudden just like Vince Young is back again. But what that does is it's insulting to the coaches you have now to have to try to claw out of those expectations and deal with the entitlement. And it's insulting to those guys like Vince Young and Roy Miller and all those dudes who built that thing.
Yep.
Who absolutely, and before that, Texas was a good team. They were good, but Mac Brown and those guys made them great. And one of the best college football teams of all time was the 05 team. And one of the greatest college football games of all time. That's over. These kids on the roster now were at most 4 years old when that happened.
I fully agree with you. But I will say this, Paul. This isn't them voting for them.
Yeah,
though.
no, it's not.
This is some random coach putting that 1 there. So this ain't Sark going, hey, I'm gonna really get these expectations high as I possibly can. I think that the last person that wanted to see a 1 next to their name was Texas. I think that the culture around Texas now that they're trying to build, it appears, with Chris Del Conte is one of, all this other, rah-rah preseason, give them the benefit of the doubt, all that, we've seen that be the wrong play time and time again. And on occasion, they will rise up and win that Sugar Bowl with Sam Ehlinger. And then you're like, okay, here they are, they're back, and that will proclaim they're back. And they haven't been back since that moment. What was that, 3-4 years ago now at this point? So, I think nobody finds it crazier than them that they get hyped up to this level, and I'm sure they're going to embrace it. And there's a chance that they could be legitimately very good this year. There's certainly a segment of people that think so, but I will give them the pass here that this isn't their fault. This is, Nick Saban, because he plays them early in the year, deciding, let me hang that first place vote out there. Or perhaps it was Jimbo doing it, or, just somebody.
Jeff
because
Traylor?
Jeff Traylor, because UTSA plays them early on. That's playing chess with the preseason poll, but, I'm sure there's people smart enough to think that way. But, that's not their fault, but they are going to get the backlash as though they voted for themselves.
It's almost like, and Paul, let them breathe. Let them get to a point where they have success and then breathe and sustain it.
You're right.
Jermaine Bell said this. Let's not forget they did bring in the best wide receiver transfer and join them along with some of the one of the best quarterbacks. Jermaine, that's true.
No, it's not.
But
no, it's not. Jordan Addison's the best wide receiver transfer.
There you go. But number 1 vote, a first place vote. It's like, did Saban put that in there because Alabama plays him in week 2? He doesn't have to play that game, but somebody did it. And usually they do allow the coaches' votes to be available I have not seen that so far.
Well, yeah, and we don't even know which head coaches even vote. Like, I mean, there's probably more assistants that vote than regular coaches. We've heard that from enough coaches to know that they don't.
Sometimes media relations.
Yeah, like they don't put a lot of time and effort. I think towards the end of the year, all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, let me see that because I need to see where we kind of are set up and our opponents and how that's all. But like early on, preseason number 1 week poll, yeah, I don't think that they care all of that much. But it's like I said, somebody might be playing checkers, UTSA or Alabama with that first place vote. Look, Jermaine and anybody else, I think Texas is going to be good. I get fooled by them every year. Every year I come in expecting them to be better than they are, like a lot of people. I think the game, though, is that people just want to be right. And so you do it every year. You vote them high. Eventually, see, told you, you're going to be right. It might take you 6 years to do it, but eventually in year 6, you go, see, I told you they were back. And it's been like this contest to see who was right. And there's been a bunch of whiffs, but maybe this year is the year because of Quinn Ewers and Sark has settled in and the transfers they've gotten and Bijan and probably his last year. But, there's also plenty of reasons that people have legitimately to say that this is still not going to be their year, that they'll be better, but not quite to what people think because of, not having that toughness level or especially on the lines that depth and toughness that, you might see around the rest of the Big 12 or around the country for that matter. But yeah, they're going to be a fascinating experiment because all of it seems lined up for them to be very good. But you got to remember too that same can be said for a lot of other teams that they're playing. So that's why, the fun is about to start with us actually seeing the real deal.
Jermaine was trying to clarify it. He goes, I actually was talking about USC,
gotcha.
Addison, legit top 10, not so much Texas.
Gotcha.
Anonymous votes and great feedback. Coaches poll votes don't come out until the end of the season as far as their final vote. There you go. Thank you to Joe for clarifying that as well.
Yeah, somebody, like some intern at some random college right now is getting – he's got the world on fire, and he's like in Maryland or something, and he just put I'm going to get everybody going. I'm going to put Texas at number 1.
Well, and the other thing is it just could be a kid or a person who's a huge Quinn Ewers fan, just believes, But
I wanted to say elsewhere, Cincy, or I guess going through the poll. I mean, Bama, Ohio State, Georgia, duh. That's just
Clemson, yeah.
Well, I don't even really include Clemson. I think those 3 are just those are the 3. That's going to be the 3 until they're not the 3 anymore. And then Clemson has sort of been until last year, which has still been like a career year for most schools, but for them was a down year. They're going to be really interesting. The quarterback situation and it's going to be really, really interesting to see Clemson. Going elsewhere, I mean, we could talk about all of them.
Well,
but
let's do that. I'm going to mention you guys respond. One of you, Notre Dame.
I think a little bit overrated seeing they had a new coach.
Did they beat a ranked team last year?
I don't think so.
Again, they're good, and Freeman has had a really good offseason, but that's a little high.
They're going to be good. I'm fascinated to see what Marcus Freeman does with the reins, and he's already off to a great start off-season wise. He did about as good as you'd want him to do. But now, let's see out on the field what it looks like. But yeah, I expect them to be good, and I expect them to be right there flirting with the top end of this poll.
All right, Jermaine. Again, Smokey, please. I never said Texas was good. Texas, they're a legit top 50 team. Everyone get off of Jermaine. Michigan
Jermaine
6 coming off a great year they had last year. A&M 7.
Yeah, they got to. I mean, they're getting kind of the benefit of the doubt with the quarterback question mark. People are just kind of assuming that that's not going to be as important maybe as it will be for some other teams, and that they're good enough elsewhere to overcome that. Like A-Chain, obviously you feel good about your skill guys. I start with him, but there's obviously others in the defense. We know the lines have been established for a while now. So there's a lot of that stuff that you don't really worry about, but the quarterback spot, that's the big, what's going to go on here?
I consider myself one of the world's leading experts on Jimbo Fisher. And
you've said this one about quarterback.
I will say this. If he gets his quarterback, he'll win.
Do you think he has him?
I don't know.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
You think he knows?
And I will tell you, if he has a mediocre quarterback, he'll be mediocre. He'll be good. I mean, but he did it. He did it with Christian Ponder and EJ Manuel, and he did it with Kellen Mond. That's great. But
did he what?
Won games, but he did not win big until Jameis happened.
Utah. I think they've earned number 8, if not even higher.
I think they're a little underrated.
I think it's going to be hilarious to see them walk into the Big 12 one day, given the way their fans have reacted to the very thought of that. No, I don't know what's going to happen with all of that. But, yeah, they're going to be really stinking good.
Oklahoma and Baylor, 9, 10, 11. Oklahoma State, 3 consecutive Big 12 teams.
Yeah, I think the top of the Big 12 is kind of a crapshoot. I mean, if you want to go Oklahoma, that's very fair. If you want to go Baylor, I think that's very fair. Oklahoma State, I think there's an argument there as well. I'm not as high on them, though, because, I mean, you did lose Jim Knowles. Like, that's just not nothing. And I know you brought in Derek Mason, but you lost some pretty good players off that defense. And when the whole thing is like, and they got Spencer Sanders back, that doesn't convince me necessarily. That doesn't make me go like, oh my gosh, Spencer Sanders is back. I mean, he's a really good player. He's not a great player yet. If he's a great player, then yeah, I'm all in on that. But
he was the Big 12 first team quarterback last year.
Yeah,
but
in a year where it wasn't really great.
Yeah, and that was a year where had Caleb Williams played more games than he did, it would have probably been Caleb Williams, but he didn't, and also lost to Oklahoma State. So.
And I don't want to treat Spencer Sanders like he's Jarrett Dagey. I mean, he's a good player, but he does make, quite a few mistakes that cost them. And so
he can win games for you. He can lose games for you.
But I do think that's fitting. 9, 10, 11, like they're jumbled like that in my mind too. And I don't think until we see them play that we're really going to know. And I do think this Oklahoma thing with Gundy, like that puts a little bit of a dent in them for me. It really does.
And that does not include what it could mean in recruiting. And that's when we'll have John Hoover on momentarily. Oregon 12, we've discussed NC State. We'll have a writer on tomorrow, Jonas Pope, the 4th on them.
I've been
Michigan
thinking
State has their quarterback back at 14. I just got that in the chat room or in the text line. Thanks for the note.
Yeah, Oregon with Dan Lanning, that's going to be really interesting to see kind of how he, changes that program and what they look like under him after, having the short stint, what felt like a short stint with Cristobal. Oregon will be really interesting to see in the Lanning era. NC State, I kind of feel like they were being sort of underrated, but I mean, here they are at 13, so I can't really say that. And Michigan State and Mel Tucker, they got a lot of swagger right now. They've got it going on in recruiting off the field, and they feel like they're setting something up pretty special. You can't get spanked by Ohio State the way you did last time.
No, you can't. Southern Cal, there's the bump with Lincoln Riley at 15. Pittsburgh. They lose their offensive coordinator. They lose their Pickett, the quarterback. They're at 16. Addison White. God, they lost. That's right. I keep forgetting that he's gone. I hate the fact that he's gone for Pittsburgh's sake. Miami 17. Texas 18. Now, if you take away the Texas first-place vote, which is worth 25 points, I think, and let's say you put them at 15, then you're looking about that drops them all the way outside the top 20. So there's a little bit of a note there. Wake Forest, nice to see them. Wisconsin, always steady. You can always rely on them being a top 25 team. There's Stoops in Kentucky at 21, and 2 future Big 12 teams again in the last 5 at 22 and 25. Brigham Young, about the 4th or 5th team right outside the poll. Yeah, that seems to be.
I mean, that's to not be a top 25 team. It almost feels like the voters either don't really know much about them, or perhaps and I can't imagine it's this other thing that I'm about to say because again, it's this first preseason poll, but it's almost like they're waiting to see them play Baylor early on and say, okay, now but I don't need to see that. I think they're going to be good.
Yep.
Well, I mean, they won the Pac-12 last year.
They really did. All right, the chat room is rolling. Hilda, thank you as always. And Hilda and Biscuits and so many of you that always say, hey, hit the like button. We appreciate you for doing that. And there's many others of you as well that say that. From Biscuits and Gravy, Spencer Sanders has 14 years of Big 12 Oklahoma State experience.
No kidding.
Phil mentioned the SMU NIL deal. We'll have that probably after John Hoover and then also Mike Games. Michigan State is starting to out-recruit Michigan in the Northwest Ohio, Toledo area. So thanks for that as well. There was a comment about we never talk about Iowa in the chat room. Timothy Vermeer, you need to get involved in that because I know we do as well. All right, we got to take a break. It's a lot going on.
That SMU NIL thing, I might not be here when y'all talk about that, but I want to talk about that. That's very interesting for a couple of different reasons.
From Tricia, I love you guys. Thank you so much for the show. We appreciate everybody watching, listening, and, of course, who's a part of it as well.
SMU NIL deal is like at the end of Scarface. It just came in and said, hey, it's all legal now. Don't worry about it.
I mean,
put the little friend away.
You know what? Good for them. If you can do it, and you can do it.
Here's my 2 main thoughts, because I might be at Baylor practice when y'all talk about it, is, one, they just blew right by what Tech was doing, which is really interesting. Like, they just, boom, here they upped it. So now, what's the next thing, and who's the next thing? I wonder how much they also in like the DMs added the Pac-12 and said, "Hey, look what we're doing over here. It's pretty cool, huh?" And I wonder if the Pac-12 cares. But I also wonder if they don't get that bump up to, let's say, the Pac-12. And I know they were another school that the Big 12 at least explored as doing a phase 2 a year ago. If you remain where you are in the American, are you still going to be doing this year in and year out? Or is this like your big push, or this is like you're grabbing you're clearly grabbing the reins and you're like, we're going all in now.
That's what Mr. Hart, the AD, mentioned to us, that they had to go and take to a level where it wasn't just enough, but more than enough, in fact, if they get noticed.
So I guess if they don't get that bump up, then they're going to be like the crown jewel of NIL at the whatever we're going to call the inevitable outside of the Power 2 or Power 3. They're going to be one of the leading, NIL, I guess, collectives in that regard. But, you wonder how sustainable that is if they don't get a bump up eventually.
We will have John Hoover look at the SMU NIL, or the collective, and then also discuss a little bit Nicole Arbach on the Big Ten and their television deal. But don't forget now, Bob Thompson at 4:30, former Fox Sports CEO who has negotiated numerous television contracts and much more in his behind-the-scenes knowledge and insight and experience. Jack is about to go to Baylor practice. Craig will be doing that here soon. And then they have their interviews after 6 o'clock. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
One of the comments in the chat, by the way, on the Spencer Sanders is, by the way, you guys have to understand, you guys, but it was brought up, a lot of freshmen on the offensive line, inexperienced last year. Caleb Etienne lost 50 pounds now, a beast mode offensive lineman that could be very, very good for them and give him a little bit more time where he's not running for his life, which he can do, but it also leads to the picks and bad throws. We're now joined by John Hoover, covers Oklahoma, SI.com on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. John, I know it's been probably just, I don't even know, the last, 15, 18 hours or so, but Brent Venables just released a statement to kind of just update and double down on exactly what happened. Has that calmed anything down in Norman?
No, there's a lot of unrest right now, Smokey. A lot of unrest. A lot of the fan base is saying, "What the actual hell is going on in Norman?" Because we all know the story by now. It happened about broke out last night around 10 o'clock. Cale Gundy was in a meeting. Was giving the guys some notes. He noticed one guy was distracted. He grabbed his iPad and said, "What are you working on?" And he read it to the rest of the class. This was just the wide receiver group. And what he was reading were some rap lyrics that had some objectionable language in it, some objectionable words, including some racially charged words. And Cale read them out loud. Cale last night characterized it in a statement, his resignation statement, saying that he read through it really fast and he wasn't sure he was even reading and he didn't mean to say what he said, and it shocked him. Well, Brent Venables came out today and said he read it multiple times, not once, but multiple times, a racially charged word that is objectionable to everyone. So Venables kind of standing up for one angle of this, and I think it sounds like, at least the way he's portraying it, Cale Gundy is taking a different perspective, that he read it and then stopped, versus what Venables is saying, he read it multiple times. Interesting.
So is this the players not being able to be comfortable with him going for, what he did was irresponsible and ridiculous, but was this maybe coming from the players of this got out of hand when he was doing it?
Yeah, okay, so I do a radio show in Tulsa, and right behind me, I go 9 to 11, and 11 to 2 is Pat Jones, former longtime Oklahoma State coach. Pat has some impeccable sources, especially as it relates to Cale Gundy and the Gundy family. You can probably guess, right? That's all I can do is guess. And it was not characterized that way to me. It was more of they were joking around. They were giving the player who got caught goofing off a hard time. Everybody was laughing about it. And then when the meeting was over, it was a few minutes before Brent Venables came to Cale Gundy and said, "Hey, you might have to resign. I can't believe you said this. I can't believe this happened. There may be a situation coming up where you have to resign." That's what Pat Jones, that's the way Pat characterized it using his sources.
So, John, can you begin to explain just how much of a massive piece Cale Gundy has been to the Oklahoma machine for going on, a couple of decades at this point?
Well, yeah, 30 years, going back to when he was a quarterback under Gary Gibbs. Let's just start there. They ran the split tee, and they ran the veer, and then they ran the wishbone for 2 generations. And, after 40, 50 years of doing that, Cale Gundy, whose big brother went to Oklahoma State and set all the Big 8 passing records, Cale Gundy thought about going to Oklahoma State, but once Gary Gibbs came along and offered him a scholarship, from Midwest City, north side of Oklahoma City, right? So you're real close.
Yeah.
Once he got that offer from OU, he said, "I'm going to OU. I'm not going to be a Cowboy. I'm going to be a Sooner." So he was the guy, y'all. He was the guy who came in at the end of the very end of the vestiges of the wishbone era. They were trying to move on. He was the quarterback that they signed. Blue chip, 4-star quarterback, number 1 player in Oklahoma, number 5 quarterback in the country. he was the guy who brought them out of the Stone Age, so to speak, out of the running quarterback wishbone, option offense that they loved so much for so many generations. He's the guy that threw the football. And so after 3.5 years as a starter, he owned every passing record at the University of Oklahoma, every record. And guys, he only had 6,100 career passing yards. So that's how little OU threw the football. They still ran a lot with Cale Gundy, but he was the guy who brought them into the future. Well, fast forward to 1999, past the John Blake and the Howard Schnellenberger eras. Cale Gundy comes back as an assistant coach, and there he is helping Josh Heupel on that first 1999 OU team under Bob Stoops, helping shatter all his passing records. So he has been a fixture on the OU coaching staff ever since. He's the only guy who coached under Bob Stoops, Lincoln Riley, and now Brent Venables, although he probably won't get credit for that because the season hasn't started yet, right? So he kind of bridged that long gap with 27 seasons or 23 seasons as an assistant coach at OU. And guys, he was the guy who recruited Adrian Peterson, beat Texas and Texas A&M for Adrian Peterson. He was the guy who went to federal prison and visited with Adrian's dad and told Adrian, you can either get on board or you can watch as the train goes by because we're winning with you or we're winning without you. And then he said, that's the end of my recruiting pitch. And Adrian said, I like that. I'm going to Oklahoma. So he's one of many, many, many guys that Cale Gundy has recruited through the years, but that's just the most high-profile story. He's kind of a legend around here, guys.
So how does that affect recruiting? Because they had a hell of a July. Anything that has been a backlash yet, or just still too soon to kind of know?
Last night, their 4-star receiver recruit, Jaquace Petaway, tweeted simply, bro, with a little emoji face. Like, what the hell? I mean, you could tell his message was, this is happening now? He's getting ready to sign in December. He's a very good receiver. I think he's the 24/7 has him as the number 3 player in Oklahoma's 2023 class. He's the number 3 ranked player. So he's a very, very big. And then they've got another receiver, 3-star receiver, Keon Brown. And these guys, these receivers, they love them some Cale Gundy. So, and if you go back and listen to the other players, there's guys who are freshmen on this team. There's guys who are commits right now who are saying, I stand with Coach Gundy. So it's interesting. It could have certainly a deleterious effect on Oklahoma's recruiting class.
So is there any way to put the genie back in the bottle here in Oklahoma to move forward without this affecting the team?
No, I don't think so. I think there's going to be there is a way. It can happen, but my suspicion is that this is going to leave a mark. This is going to divide the team. There's going to be people who Brent Venables is a great uniter of people, so he's got an opportunity to take this divide that's been created, whether it's between all the alumni. Something like 220 alumni came to the spring game. Among the 75,000 people that were here, 220 of them were former players. A lot of those former players are really kicked off right now and really kind of raw. And I'll tell you this, there's Oklahoma just set a record, guys, over $109 million in just donations. The previous record for donations was $58 million. Okay, so $109 million this year. A lot of that is Brent Venables. Now there are a lot of those people who wrote those checks who are big Cale Gundy fans saying, wait a minute, Brent Venables, what are you doing? Why'd you dismiss him from the team? Why'd you make him resign? Why has he been removed? How bad do you want this check? There's people that are saying, if I don't get my Cale Gundy, you're not getting your check. You know what I mean? There's that actually played out when in the Mike Stoops situation, when Mike was fired at midseason by Lincoln Riley. It was some really deep-pocketed boosters who went to Lincoln Riley and went to the president of the university at the time. He's not there now, different Perez. But they went to him and said, this is embarrassing. Texas just hung 50 points on us. Texas isn't any good. we need to change the defensive coordinator. They got it done. Boosters got it done. I have that on good authority. So I just wonder if, somebody with deep pockets and a loud mouth can come up and make Venables really think about this. It doesn't sound like it now. It sounds like Venables, as we said at the top, has doubled down, and he's going down this path. So, but it's a bad look all the way around. And guys, gosh darn it, we made it to the start of two-a-days, start of training camp, the start of preseason, without anybody under Venables getting arrested, getting kicked off the team. We made it across the finish line, and then a coach gets forced to resign. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and the last one you probably would have guessed would have been Cale Gundy too, and
I know,
and much less.
Mr.
And I think the other thing, yeah, exactly. And the other thing too, John, is I'm already seeing Texas commits like, hey, my coach would never say, and that's the other thing you got to deal with. So it's a triple whammy. But I did want to ask you about LaDamian Washington, who will now step in as the new wide receivers coach for Brent Venables here all of a sudden. I mean, how much do you know about him? How much confidence is there in him? I know he's no Cale Gundy, but he's going to have to be the guy now.
Yeah, that's the thing. First, I'll address what you said about Texas. We've been talking about this on my show today about Gary Patterson saying some stuff to players that he had to apologize for.
Yeah.
And Texas hired him. So I know you got a lot of Texas fans listening. If you're a Texas fan, I wouldn't brag too loud that the OU coaches are using that word because there's some Texas coaches. Anyway, LaDamian Tomlinson, Washington, LaDamian Thompson as a running back, who probably could coach any position he wanted. LaDamian Washington, Missouri wide receiver. He kicked around in the NFL. He was with the Cowboys for a little while. He's 31 years old. He was with the St. Louis Battlehawks last in the XFL or the AAF. I think it was the XFL. Anyway, no, it was the AAF, the Alliance of American Football. He's a young guy that really seems to, 31 years old, seems to really relate to the players quickly, has already formed a lot of relationships, and he was brought on as an offensive analyst, but basically he was the assistant wide receivers coach. He was assisting Cale Gundy. So on an interim basis, unless something changes, Venables said yesterday, on an interim basis, he'll be the wide receivers coach. I don't think they're going to turn any big recruiting. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't think they're going to turn recruiting over to him unless they decide to make him full-time and remove the interim tag. But, we'll have to wait and see what kind of personality he's got. We haven't met him yet, haven't talked to him, haven't interviewed him. Find out what kind of recruiter he is. And if he can do the job, then I'm sure they'll try to retain him.
John, there has been, I've seen this with some reaction, even those who are members of the media or in our chat room. You've mentioned how powerful or how important the role was of Cale Gundy in the Oklahoma program, and he's a legend, and not just with recruiting, but just the fact he's been around. Was there anything at all between Gundy and Venables that Venables has to make the decision? Was there have you seen any of that smoke that this was just something that Venables was looking for something? There's no way that's true, is there?
No. They spent time on the road when Venables first got here. We went to Cale and said, "Do you want to stay?" And Cale said, "Of course I want to stay. I don't want to go anywhere." He goes, "Good, you're my guy. You're the one I want." To borrow from the late, great Olivia Newton-John, right? He told him, "You're the one that I want. I want you here. I want you recruiting. You did a great job before. You're going to continue to do a great job. We're going to be best friends. You're going to work for me, and it's going to be fabulous." And then all of a sudden, this comes out of nowhere. So it was a shocker. There's no bad blood between them. There's no friction between them. These guys like each other. There's no jealousy. There's no hatred or anything like that. They have been fast friends since 1999 when Cale was the third guy Bob Stoops hired, and later on Venables arrived from the K-State bowl game. So it's been a long, fruitful relationship between them, and that's what else makes this so shocking. The first thing everybody around here thought, well, the administration took this away from Venables and just cut his knees out from under him, right, and neutered him and made him fire one of his guys. And it's coming out now that may not be the case, that it might be Venables who actually made the call, which is again, that's the most shocking part of this whole thing.
Yeah, well, John, your first reaction when I asked you about the smoke, the dust to settle, whatever, was that now there's a lot of unrest right now in Norman, Oklahoma, and I can understand why. We appreciate it. Thanks for your time. Good luck handling that the next day 2 or 5 or whatever it needs to, because it's going to it'll have a lasting effect on recruiting, you would think, or it could, and you hope if Oklahoma can settle that down as well with the right way to handle the prospects and commits. Thanks for your time, John.
You bet. It's a preseason story we did not want to cover, but yet here we are.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, guys.
Great stuff from John Hoover, SISooners.com. And, we've had so much throughout the offseason. Now you start working out and you get to that point, and like you said, then, damn, and this will be something that's brought up now for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
It'll also be used against them. And if you're Oklahoma, you could also turn this into a positive if you are smart the way you handle it and how you did, even if people disagree with how you handled it.
Yeah, I think that, to use it against them, like right now, if you're Brent Venables, be like, yeah, and he left. The incident was 3 days old and he resigned or whatever it was. So, I think that on the to keep the pitchforks at the gate on that one side, they handled it really quickly. Now, the problem is that people on the outside will have to have that defense thrown at them, but people on the inside who are Cale Gundy supporters are not going to like this at any point. There's nothing you're going to say to those people that's going to make them do this. Joe Mixon, Adrian Peterson have already come out saying statements of like, there's no racist bone in his body, and there may not be, but this is where they are right now. And so, yeah, there's going to be a divide, and you can already see it forming because he is, Mr. OU, really.
Yeah. He's not by any means in the neighborhood of the greatest players to ever play there, but he is a long-lasting member of that family as a former player, and then, of course, as a long-time assistant coach. And he's a guy that's brought in some of the greatest players of all time.
There are players at every university who are Cale Gundys.
Yes.
Whoever it might be, like, there's a guy who, if all of a sudden you heard something that they did wrong and had to leave, you'd be like, what?
Yeah.
At Florida State, if Odell Higgins all of a sudden had to leave, I'd be like, how did that happen?
Yeah, a famous, really damn good player and a popular player. Mm-hmm. So there's that. And we'll see what happens from that point. The chat room, of course, a lot of you have your opinions on it. We appreciate all of them. We do, as you go back and forth. Now, 3:51, we have today let's see here. Gary Seegers is going to join us from Winning Cures Everything. He does a podcast. He's a YouTube guy as well. And then he interviewed Trev Alberts in Nebraska, who made a couple of comments about it. Basically doesn't think the end is in sight when it comes to realignment. And we'll get him to kind of explain that a little bit. Okay, let's go to the SMU thing first. So here's the SMU graphic. SMU's Boulevard Collective to pay football, basketball players $36,000 annually.
Or more than you'll make in your first year as a public school teacher.
For Eric Dickerson, he's like, wait a minute, that was for me each month. And I'm kidding there, but maybe true. Ross Stellinger, who will join us tomorrow, covers college football for SI.com, just said he thinks it's the most aggressive NIL collective that he has seen. And here it is. We kind of touched on it a little bit.
These alums at SMU didn't stop having money.
No.
You drive through that neighborhood, it's not like it's destitute in Highland Park where SMU is. There are SMU alums with money. They just weren't allowed to spend it for a long time because of what happened there in the 80s. And now, it's all legal and you can dust off the old playbook and start doing what you're doing, probably more organized, that you didn't have to, out-cheat the other schools in the Southwest Conference that were also doing it. And, the most famous story, of course, is Eric Dickerson's gold Trans Am was from A&M. What are they going to do? Call up and say that, we were cheating fair and square.
Yeah.
You can't.
How come he signed with them? We gave him a car. Yeah.
What are you supposed to do,
The Matador Club had announced, last month, that they were giving players 85 scholarship and also walk-on players, a handful of them, $25,000 a year. So this is even higher. And this is driven by Chris Kleinert, the CEO of Hunt Realty Investments, which is a powerful, powerful business, not just in Dallas. Kyle Miller, president and CEO of Silver Hill Energy Partner. immediately joins what Tennessee's done, A&M and the Fund, Texas Tech and the Matador Club. So they threw down, and they can do it, and they announced that today, and we'll hear from Ross on that tomorrow, but also very interesting with that coming down. Now, how many players will go to SMU with that available? Will they still go to SMU? Does this now give SMU a little bit of a sliver of hope that, hey, we're going to start recruiting at this particular level? Whether that makes a difference in the future of where they play other than the American Conference, we don't know. Remember, we had Mr. Hart on, the AD, back in the fall, and they really felt like they were on the cusp of something happening. And, of course, it's now been just completely just slowed down with all the changes in college football. Now, also this one. Nicole Arbach put this up, a tweet from earlier today. We're waiting for the Big Ten's new media rights deal to be finalized. So much attention is focused on the total annual revenue, but I'm also extremely curious to see who the Big Ten partners with, or who their Big Ten partners are, and who they aren't. What if the Big Ten doesn't have an ESPN package?
That would be surprising because, ESPN not wanting or not bidding big on the Big Ten will kind of lead you into that there's an ESPN league and a Fox league thing as well, that theory on the SEC and the Big Ten, and maybe leave some ESPN money open for somebody else, but would also be interesting to see who would swing that big to get into that space with Fox. Like, who wants to be in the Big Ten so bad that they're going to outbid Disney for it? Is it NBC or CBS or... look, CBS is losing the SEC. Unless they just decide to write that money off and not get back in the college football game, you would think that they're going to make an aggressive bid to at least get a Big Ten game of the week.
Put up the follow-up texts or tweets as well. That would be, one, so strange for college football fans to fathom. Two, create a fascinating dynamic in the Fox versus ESPN wars. What if it's Fox, NBC, CBS, Apple, but no ESPN? What would that mean more broadly for the future of media rights and live sporting events? And, of course, obviously it affects the future Big 12 or Pac-12, Big 12 media rights as well. So, hey, behind Paul, on the shelf behind Paul, we have the Brigham Young big helmet behind us in the main, but there's, in the corner, Brigham Young, 2 mini helmets that came to me over the weekend from Jim Nelson, who's a huge Brigham Young fan. We have a lot of BYU fans who watch along with other fan bases. So those are up, and Jim Nelson, we appreciate you very, very much. Baylor, of course, plays Brigham Young the second weekend up in Provo, Utah, the second weekend in September.
You're never going to meet a Mormon family with just one kid. So we have 3 different helmets. I say this as a Catholic, so I live in the same world. So we have 3 different BYU helmets, much like very reflective of the university.
That's Paul Catalina, and he's a stand-up comedian as well.
No, I know. I'm worth it.
I know you are. You're having fun. Now, when we come back, we'll hear from Gary Sagers. He talked to Trev Alberts, who has his own problems at Nebraska, like winning anything. But he did mention he was asked about the future of college athletics. And so Gary will help us with that and what was said next on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace last night had a bone-in ribeye. Put it on the grill. It was delicious. I mentioned the other day I had a friend of mine, Blake, who invited me over to have a steak at his place just around the corner. I've gotten to know him playing golf at Ridgewood on occasion. Great guy. Man, what a great guy. And he had a filet that was as thick as you could possibly be. And it was absolutely just perfectly cooked and delicious. Right now, their specials for this week at Waco Custom Marketplace include fresh mahi-mahi at $13.50 a pound. Jalapeno cheese snack sticks at $6.99 a pound. Chicken wings, $3.85 a pound. Boneless pork chops, $1.85 a pound. And you can get those cut custom if you want by contacting the butcher shop. Tri-tip, $5.75 a pound. Top sirloin steak, same price. And 30% off all boar's head lunch meat. They have a full boar bakery and also butcher shop. Custom make and cut your steaks as you want. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Did you know the average American pays over $500 a month for their car payment? What would you do if you didn't have to make that payment for 90 days? Where else could you use $1,500? Keep your car payments at Genco. Buy new or refinance your current vehicle and have no payments for 90 days. Take advantage of our low rates and no payments for 90 days. Only at Genco. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies insured by NCUA.
My money, my future, my credit union, Genco.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon-wrapped filet. And, of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
We will hear from Gary Seegers in a moment. Podcast Winning Cures Everything, and I hope Gary's okay with staying. Here's a comment. This is a part of his podcast, and this is what caught my attention. He's interviewing Trev Alberts, the former Nebraska defensive lineman, but also current AD, and was discussing just college football, the landscape, and more. Here's the response. This is about a minute from Trev.
Big Ten is cooling off on that. What have you kind of been made abreast to when it does come to, you know, what the Big Ten is looking to do and what you've heard from Kevin Warren and the folks there in Chicago?
Well, first and foremost, we're really fixated right now on getting our media deals done, and I think we've made really good progress. And I think we're going to, work really hard to get them across the finish line and the goal line, and then look to the future. And so, I think it's fool's gold for any conference to say we will no longer be expanding. I think the world continues to change. I think whether it's the Big Ten or other conferences, I think there will be more disruption in terms of there will be more realignment. There will be more changes. That's just natural. The reason some of this change happened was the grant of rights for the Pac-12, were up. And so, there was some movement. Other conferences have grants of rights that are out much, longer distance, but that hasn't stopped from some schools from finding a way. So I think there will be more change. I think the change will likely happen sooner rather than later. I would anticipate there being more consolidation. That's just seems to be, what's ultimately, that's the path that we've been going down. And I don't see a strong sentiment to slow that thinking down.
So that's Trev Alberts, AD, with, again, Gary Seeger's Winning Cures Everything. He joins us now on 365 Sports and Sikkim 365 Radio. Gary, thanks for your time. So, you kind of get this conflict, not you, but nothing is imminent, and then there are things that will be sooner rather than later, as Trev Alberts said. What do you feel?
Well, let me go ahead and correct you right off the bat. That was not my interview, although I would love to take credit for it. That was Nick Handley from ESPN Omaha.
Okay.
So now Nick is fantastic, and Trev would not come on with a national show right now. He would be handling all the stuff in state. That certainly makes sense. But as far as my opinion on this, I think everything is at a standstill until we get Notre Dame's answer. And I don't think we get Notre Dame's answer until not only the Big Ten rights come in, which of course should be sometime before Labor Day, and it may not even be then. I think once we figure out what's going on with the college football playoff, that'll be the next round to figure out whether or not Notre Dame can stay independent and still make the same amount of money, or at least something similar to what the Big Ten would offer if they were to bring Notre Dame in.
What are Nebraska fans' feelings on the conference getting bigger? Is this good for them that USC is in there? We've kind of speculated on it. Back in the Tom Osborne days, they used to be able to go into California and pluck some guys out of there. Now that they might be playing there, would that help?
I believe it might help some, but you forget college football is so nationalized now that you don't necessarily have to travel anywhere to be able to recruit those spots. I was looking through today. There's a post over on Reddit about the P5 schools that are going to visit G5 schools, and some of them just make absolutely no sense. Like, why is North Carolina going to play at Georgia State? Is it because they want to try and get more in the Atlanta market? It doesn't make any kind of reasonable sense. I don't know necessarily that bringing in USC and UCLA helps Nebraska, right? I think the Nebraska fans are excited about the prospects of bigger games and maybe of, not having to play that West slate in the Big Ten because it's such a different brand of football from what Scott Frost wants to play. But at the same time, I don't know how excited they'll be because it's just more big-time brands, more good schools that they're going to have to play on a week-in and week-out basis.
So, what are your thoughts right now, Gary, overall in college football? We have this USC, UCLA. A year ago, Texas, Oklahoma. There's always what can the Pac-12 do? What's Notre Dame going to do? What is your sense? I know the Notre Dame and the Big Ten contract being announced, all that. What is your sense that where we'll be at the end of the year?
At the end of the year, I don't know that a lot is going to change at the end of this year. Right. I think we're pretty set on what it's going to be right now. What Alberts was saying as far as sooner rather than later, I think is more looking, the next 2 to 3 years. Right. Because that's still a pretty short timetable as far as realignment goes, especially considering, up until last year, that was the first time in 9 years that we had any kind of movement really, except for at the lower levels, of course. And there's always movement at the lower levels. So where I think this thing is going, I can't figure out a couple of things. If you had asked me this last week, I would have been absolutely convinced that Stanford was going to be the team that joined Notre Dame, and they would both go to the Big Ten, probably later on this year, maybe early next year, sometime around there once we figure out the playoff situation. But I don't know that I'm necessarily sold on that. Stanford has a $37.8 billion endowment. Now, if they wanted to be big-time players in college athletics, they would do that. But if you look back in the 2020 COVID season, they were talking about having to cut some of the non-revenue sports at the school. Well, if you got a $37 billion endowment, why would you ever have to cut sports? Like, I think it would be more likely that Stanford would end up cutting the football program than they would be to move to the Big Ten. If it's only about football. Now, if it's about academics, et cetera, which some of this stuff has to do with, then maybe Stanford does make that move because I think they are the most likely partner with Notre Dame. But as far as, value for the Big Ten, who actually provides that value? That's what I can't figure out is if they want to control that late night window, is that really that important of a window for them? Because if so, USC is not going to be playing all of their home games at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. Like, I just don't see that as happening. So you have to bring somebody else in. Are Oregon and Washington worth that? Are Cal and Stanford worth that? But, those two in the Bay Area, do politics get in the way? That's another big question in all this. And I hate talking about politics, but is it something that the Big Ten wants to have to deal with if something like the COVID pandemic were to happen again? I'm so interested in maybe we're looking at the wrong area because you notice he did bring up the grant of rights being up for the Pac-12, but maybe that grant of rights won't be up. Like maybe those schools will sign a grant of rights, even if it's just for 5 years or so for the next TV deal. Maybe we need to be looking at the ACC. Like, was he hinting at something where maybe Miami or North Carolina or Virginia, another academic institution that has a pretty big football brand, could one of those be a school that heads over to the Big Ten and provides a little bit of value? That's what I'm curious about. Which way are they wanting to go? Because it doesn't sound like that they are sitting still. I think they're going to do something else. I just cannot tell exactly what it's going to be.
Well, Gary, if you look at their previous strategy, it's about markets, right? And time zones and places in the country where they can have everything covered so that there's cable network carriage and population centers and things like that. So if they already have LA, does San Francisco really do that much better? If you could get Miami, if you could get, you say you're in D.C., but could you really own D.C. if you got Virginia to go with Maryland, Charlotte, North Carolina, those kind of things? Those are kind of interesting to me because, where are they not? They're not in Texas. They're not, in places like that are football hotbeds. Like, where could you go if you're the Big Ten and you really wanted to expand that footprint totally nationally?
Miami does certainly make sense. And I'll tell you this, I heard you guys talking about SMU and the new NIL collective and everything. SMU certainly makes a little bit of sense, not necessarily for the Big Ten, but, I kind of got laughed at on my show by some people when I mentioned that the ACC and SMU had some talks, right? And it wasn't anything major. It wasn't like an impending deal. But SMU would kind of make sense to the ACC, especially if they're wanting to get into the Texas market, right? As far as the Big Ten goes, the reason I bring up the Bay Area is because the Bay Area has the largest contingent of alumni for the Big Ten of anywhere in the country. So if you're wanting fans to be able to come out to games, whether it be in Palo Alto or at Berkeley, et cetera, that would be somewhere that you could get them to come back out. Maybe reinvigorate an alumni base that hasn't been touched by the sport in a long time. As far as markets go, yeah, it totally makes sense. But once you've got, they basically claim New York with Rutgers. I don't know that they necessarily should claim it, but they've got New York, and then they've got LA, and they've got Chicago. You've got the three largest media markets in the country already. So maybe Miami makes sense, but, how much more do you need if you've already got those three major ones and you've already got a large swath of the Midwest anyway?
Do you feel like they would have any interest at all? You mentioned the cities. Where do you think Phoenix with Arizona State and Arizona come into play at all? If anything at all, does that move the needle for anybody?
I don't think it's the Big Ten. I think it would certainly move the needle for the Big 12.
Right.
There's not a lot of huge markets in the Big 12, but there are large fan bases. So, it's a great question. And I will tell you, at one point about 3 weeks ago, I felt so sure about certain things, about Notre Dame joining the Big Ten, and there's no way they can keep up, et cetera. Hey, here's an interesting question. I'm going to change topic just a little bit. Let's get back over to Notre Dame for a second. And so I was convinced on Notre Dame joining the Big Ten, right? Well, we're talking about these Big Ten media rights negotiations, et cetera. Why on earth would the Big Ten decide to bring in NBC if NBC is trying to pair them with Notre Dame? Like if the Big Ten bringing in NBC and giving them a game every week, if that allows NBC to pay Notre Dame close to what they're asking, right? They're wanting $75 million a season. Why would they do that if they really want Notre Dame to join? You see what I'm asking? Like, does that make any sense at all for the Big Ten to do?
No. Yeah, I get you.
So that's where I'm going at with this is, you read the Nicole Auerbach tweet.
Yeah, I did.
Does that – it doesn't seem like NBC would be the next one up. Now, I could totally see Fox keeping ESPN away from the table as far as Big Ten rights are concerned. But I also don't think that they're going to want to bring in NBC if it means that they're not going to get Notre Dame. So, yeah, all of this expansion stuff is phenomenally interesting. But I every week that goes by, the more stuff that I hear, this stuff from Trev Alberts just seemed to cloudy the waters more than it did clear them up.
Do you think that the Big Ten and the SEC have the same end game, or are they just reacting to each other's shots?
I think both of them did not necessarily intend on expansion. That's what I think. I think USC was interested in the Big Ten, right? USC and UCLA. And I think Texas and Oklahoma were interested in the SEC. Once those schools ask you, then of course you have to say yes, because if you don't say yes, they're going somewhere else. So the SEC could not afford to tell Texas and Oklahoma no, because they would go to the Big Ten. And at that point, then the SEC maybe has to try and bring in, USC and UCLA if they're trying to get out of their Pac-12 deal. But, how much more ridiculous does that sound with USC traveling cross country to play Alabama and LSU? I mean, it sounds ridiculous. So I think that they never intended on doing this, but because their brands are so valuable and because they were going to be making the vast majority of the money, they almost had to make the moves. And I do think that Fox probably played a big part of this, because once Fox got their fingers into the Big Ten, they kind of started running the show. I have never seen anything like what they're doing with their media rights negotiations, where Fox is in the room with these other companies. Like, I cannot believe that they are at the table listening to offers from ESPN and NBC and CBS. I mean, I don't know that that's ever been done.
Yeah, that's a Godfather move right there.
No, that's called the Jay Leno.
Yeah,
Jay Leno used to hide in the closet when they were negotiating with David Letterman and find out what they said to Letterman. And then he would go back to his agent and tell his agent, "Hey, they're offering Letterman this much. Tell him I'll walk." So
yeah, it's insane to think about, because at that point, then okay, well, ESPN's going to offer this much. That means that we can go get maybe the Big 12 for this, or we can get whatever. Like, you can find different advantages just by sitting in at those meetings. And I've never seen a conference allow that to go on, because in a way it kind of undercuts what the Big Ten can end up eventually making. So if Fox is running the whole show and they're actually sitting in on the meeting, I'm a little confused and concerned, really, for the sport, because really it's just becoming Fox versus ESPN, and I don't think that's good for anybody.
So tell everybody, Gary, what you do. I mentioned Winning Cures Everything, your podcast. I know you just love to cover college football from coast to coast. Your thought? Did you ever want an idea where they can find you?
Go over to winningcureseverything.com. That's the easiest way. It'll take you to the podcast, take you to the YouTube show as well. But I also do the BetUS college football show during the season. So myself, Parker Fleming, you guys probably know him. He covered TCU for a while. He's at Stats of War on Twitter. But he and then Kyle Hunter is our handicapper over there. So the BetUS college football show is getting back into gear starting up next week. And then people, of course, can find me on Twitter at GaryWCE.
All right, buddy. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate your time. That's Gary Seegers again. Winning Cures Everything. I like the name of that site, by the way. And his thoughts that we played the Trev Alberts audio that he has played from a show out of Omaha. At 4:30 today, Bob Thompson, You want to talk about a resume of someone who would understand what all that might be going on right now with the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the window, all of that. He responded to a comment from Dennis Dodd at CBSSports.com about something that John Wilner put up. And here it is right here. Dennis Dodd, he goes, a great point here by the Wilner hotline. The Pac-12 exclusive negotiating window has likely been extended to react to the Big Ten's media rights announcement. It reportedly expires on Thursday. Now, this was, I think, late last week. Bob Thompson, I saw this. His response was this: sorry, but that doesn't make sense to extend an exclusive negotiation window. That is a cause that networks ask for in a contract, not the conference. Pac-12 should want to be outside the window so that they can talk to anybody and everyone else legally. And then on top of that, someone just kind of popped at Bob. Like, yeah. He goes, I'm sorry, but I've negotiated like 200 of these things before. All of the major conferences. He's going to join us at 4:30. I can't wait.
I can't wait either. I have a lot of questions because I need him to explain these kind of phantom, the Rutgers in New York thing that they're able to sell, because that one hasn't blown up in the Big Ten's face. Obviously, things are working out well for the Big Ten, but the Longhorn Network did somewhat blow up in Texas's face because they sold ESPN and Disney on the fact that, everybody loves us. When in fact, no, most people don't like you. And that's not just because of the Longhorns. That's the case for you like one college football program and the other 129 can go to hell. Yeah. Like, that's basically your attitude. Like, you're not, like, I don't, you might have one that, like, you like, and then your parents' alma mater.
Notre Dame used to be that.
Yeah, but I mean, and
they're not so much anymore. I don't feel that about them anymore.
Well, you know why? Because it's been 34 years since they've won a national title. The Cowboys are like that and still manage to move the needle, and that's only because the one really brilliant thing that their owner continually does is make the Cowboys interesting.
No matter what. 4-12, 4-13 now, or 13-4.
That's because Jerry Jones is America's greatest salesman.
He's Barnum and Bailey of pro sports.
He absolutely is. He absolutely is.
Even now, remember Bill Veeck? Bill Veeck of the White Sox and whatever. Just blows him out.
I got to meet his son when I was a kid. Mike Veeck owned the Fort Myers Miracle at the time and did all kind of stuff like that. They were wild stuff. Came on career day to my high school, as a matter of fact. I didn't want to leave the room. So I'm curious on those kind of things. Like, what are you really buying, and is it really worth it when you do it in the long run?
Well, we're going to hear from Bob Thompson, Thompson Sports Group, a former, network Fox Sports executive, and much more. I'm going to read you his bio. It's pretty impressive. It's not pretty. It's very impressive. And maybe he can help clear the air on a few things that are reported or said, and I know I could surely learn a little bit of that insight as well. It is 421, Sikkim, 365 Radio, and 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you used to be. What does used to be mean? 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. The one that gets most of the attention is your sex drive. It is ED. It is something that is a sexual activity. It's not the same. The other could be your focus, attention, and energy, body fat, and sleep habits. So there's other symptoms you have. 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. So here's what you need to do. If you feel like you might be in that group, go to PettyClinicLowT.com. PettyClinicLowT.com, top corner, email, phone number, contact them, and tell them what you feel like there's something wrong or maybe wrong. Then Dr. Petty and his staff will set you up to get your blood work. He'll look at the results, and if your testosterone levels are too low, he can put you in a program so you can get that increased and also become the high-performance man you want and need and used to be at PettyClinicLowT.com.
During the Make This the Summer event, Allen Samuels is celebrating with an incredible lineup of new 2022 models like the Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. These vehicles bring power, style, and a smooth ride you'd expect from a Jeep. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with a third row. Come see what Allen Samuels can offer you and your family and find the Jeep SUV that fits your lifestyle.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
19-year-old true freshman quarterback stepping in for the injured Matt Corral, and then being brought down. Bryson Jackson with the sack and the turnover on downs.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Craig Smoak is at Baylor football practice. The Dragon is right now not inside the studio. Inside the studio, Garrett Ross, Levi Caraway, Emery Winter. Jack McKenzie's also at practice, and they'll have some great pictures, video, interviews, and much more in the premium section as well. Paul Catalina with me. I'm David Smoak. Bob Thompson, he's the principal owner of Thompson Sports Group. I want you to hear his resume, and I saw him that tweet we showed just before the break. I said, well, it might have been, was it R. Webb who tweeted that at me and said, yeah, it caught my attention. He served as the president of Fox Sports Networks, responsible oversight of the day-to-day management of Fox's cable television sports networks. He served simultaneously as president of Fox Sports International, overseeing all of Fox Sports International activities. But listen to this part. With all that's going on with the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the Big 12, of course, a little bit 2 or 3 years from now with their grant of rights and much more. Considered one of the most knowledgeable authorities in the sports television industry, during more than 25 years at Liberty and Fox Sports, he negotiated more than 200 television rights agreements with professional sports teams, leagues, collegiate conferences, and has been directly involved in the launch of 18 regional and national cable networks. Again, Bob Thompson, Thompson Sports Group, former Fox Sports executive, joins us to try to help clarify many things on SicEm 365 Radio and 365 Sports. And Bob, thank you very much. I appreciate you jumping on with us. Paul's with me as well. How much of all of what you've seen, with so much being reported, this and that, are you sometimes going, well, that's not true, that can't be right, or that's not the way it works?
Well, quite a bit of it is totally incorrect. But and if anybody tells you they know exactly what's going on, they're lying to you. I mean, this is a three-dimensional chess game played out on so many levels with so many moving parts. It's just really hard to separate the reality from the dreamland.
So let's just put me in the room with Fox and the Big Ten right now and whoever is trying to negotiate with them for the rest of those TV rights. How does that work, and what are the big swings that the Big Ten is taking to try to get that money that they're going to get?
Right. Well, first, I listened to your last segment, and I don't know that I necessarily agree that Fox is running the negotiations. Fox is certainly a part of the negotiations because they're clearly going to be the primary package holder for the network or for the conference. But the flip side is that you got to remember Fox also owns 60-some% of the Big Ten network. So anything that gets done below that primary tier has some effect on the Big Ten network. So Fox being involved in that is certainly, I can see, reasonable. I can understand the uneasiness amongst the other potential bidders to have, use the proverbial fox in the hen house, so to speak. But at the end of the day, the conference is going to make the call based on the right money and the right fit so that all the packages work together.
Bob, did you see this becoming what it is today back when you started doing all this and watching the networks and college football explode and these TV deals you negotiated?
It's interesting, that these deals, or the realignment, basically moves in concert with the expiration of television rights agreements. That was the case back when the Southwest Conference fell apart and the Big Eight and the Southwest Conference merged. That was the case in 2009-10 when, Colorado took off, Nebraska took off. You had some movement to the SEC from Missouri and Texas A&M. Same thing. That was 2009-2010 with the expiration of television agreements. Then we had quite a few years off because the Pac-12 and the Big 12 both went with 12, 13-year deals. So we've been sitting here since then, waiting for this moment to come. So it's not really surprising to me that at this point you're starting to see some movement. I guess the question becomes, is there more? And if so, who and when?
So what creates the value of someone who would want to move overall? Like people, like to talk about brand name and market size. Do you have a ranking if you're a network exec of what you want to see, especially when you're negotiating a TV deal?
Sure. I think TV and the conferences look for some similar things, but some different things. From the television standpoint, market size is still extremely important, especially for the broadcast networks, because their primary source of revenue is from advertising. They do make some money from retransmission consent from the cable operators and the satellite providers, but advertising and ratings are still very, very important. And the networks also look for brand. They look for, what kind of rivalries we can put, what kind of rivalries the schools have, what's the ratings history, what kind of games we can make, with alumni following, size, things like that, how far out they're spread. All those things are important for TV. I think the conferences look at those things, some of those things as well, but they're really more about, does it fit culture-wise? What's it going to bring to us from a value standpoint, academics, things like that. And then also for those conferences that have their own broadcast or television network, like Big Ten Network, FCC, ACC, they look at it along the lines of, can I expand the distribution of that network into an area that heretofore we had not been to as a, say, basic service? And that's basically the reason for the expansion to Rutgers and the Big Ten being able to take claim of the New York market, and to certainly D.C., Baltimore for University of Maryland, and to a certain extent for the USC, UCLA. But also that's just a big market, and it was a great opportunity for the Big Ten to expand west and put a whole national footprint in play.
So Bob Thompson, again, has been a part of a lot of these negotiations with network. For example, conferences and networks, 4 Big 8, Big 12 contracts, TV deals, 3 Pac-12, 2 Big 10, 1 each in the ACC, Mountain West, the old Southwest Conference. And he responded to somebody that questioned his insight and knowledge on Twitter when Bob had responded to a couple of comments. And I think the guy goes, "I'm sorry, I apologize," which was kind of neat that somebody on Twitter actually apologized, because you don't see that very often. Bob, when you look at the value of the Big 12, they've lost, they're going to lose. You know that, Texas and Oklahoma. You used to negotiate contracts with the Big 12. Did you think when Bob Bowlesby reacted with the 4 new teams that would save the conference? And is it still where they're safe now, even with all the changes and thoughts about maybe a Super 2 conference?
I think the Big 12 and the Pac-12 are in very similar situations. If they can hold it together and get through this next round of television rights with a reasonable expectation for the members to, get some number of the 35 to 45 million, and then per school per year, and then hope to be able to take home a payday as a result of the college football playoff expansion at the end of this current deal, then I think you're going to be, you can stick together. Clearly, it's going to be SEC Big Ten from the financial standpoint, probably 40 to 50% more on an annual basis. But that doesn't mean that these other schools can't compete. I think as long as they have some, reasonable revenues and a clear path to a college football playoff berth, that they'll be comfortable in that type of a situation. I think the biggest mistake right now would be for people to run, because first of all, there may be nowhere for them to run to at this point. But to do that and then ultimately end up in a situation where they're, the not going to be able to compete as well as they would in the situation that they're currently in.
Who has the advantage right now, in your opinion? If there is an advantage, the Pac-12 who has a year left on their deal, or the Big 12 who has a couple of years left to maybe watch and see what happens?
Well, I think the Pac-12 has a slight advantage because their deal is being negotiated right now. Whether they came out of the exclusive window or not, I don't know. I mentioned yesterday, I found it hard to believe that anybody would want to extend an exclusive window. You want to be able to talk to as many people as you can legally. So I think the Pac-12 has a slight advantage. I don't think that puts the Big 12 at a big disadvantage, though, because they're going to see what happens and will be able to react after the Big 10 deal is done, after the Pac-12 deal presumably is done, and we'll have a clear lay of the land. I think also, it's still, while the Big 12 has these schools coming, you still got to get them there, So I'd hate to see anybody bolt before they even get there. So I think, it's pretty comparable. Pac-12 might have a slight advantage only because they're a year ahead, and I don't see anybody coming to the table to the Big 12 right now to start negotiating the deal this far out, especially when you've got the Big 10 still kind of hanging out there, should be done soon, and then you've got the Pac-12 just starting up.
What is to stop people from, like you said, if you can hold together and, be competitive with the money, but what's to stop a university like Oregon from saying, well, $52 million is nice, but what's really nice is $100 million. How can we get that? And throwing wrenches in the deal. And the same thing in the ACC. I mean, if you're Clemson and you're making 38 and South Carolina is making 100 or 75, that's going to make people restless. How do you tamp down those fires?
Well, in the case of the ACC, you have this existing grant of rights, which is what the schools pledge basically contractually to the conferences for their athletic rights, television rights, and then the conference amalgamates those rights and combines them and sells them to the network. So the ACC is pretty much locked till 2000. I think it's 2036 or something like that. That's not to say a bunch of them couldn't rise up and say, we're going to challenge because we're falling behind, and that's always a possibility. But I don't think it's real likely right now. But now, if you look at Oregon, that's a different situation because with the expiration of the big Pac-12 media rights, Oregon's grant of rights will expire as well. And so the question becomes, what kind of grant of rights deal would Oregon be prepared to sign with the conference and for how long? And if they do, what's the out? What's the buyout agreement? Should the Big Ten ultimately come calling on, say, Oregon and University of Washington or Oregon and Stanford or some combination of groups that might want to go to the Big Ten? Oregon's going to try and keep flexible because they're just kind of right on the edge. The Big Ten looks at them and goes, okay, if we get Oregon, is somebody going to give us a 75, 80, and ultimately $100 million more in value every year, or are we just dividing the pie one more way and making everybody, it becomes a dilutive exercise as opposed to something that adds additional value or at least holds everybody at the same level.
Bob, other than Notre Dame, is there anybody that right now is a part of a conference that might be wobbly? The ACC has their long grant of rights. There might be 3 or 4 names there, but is there anybody in the Pac-12 that does bring that kind of value other than USC and UCLA?
Not the 78 to $100 million. No, I think Notre Dame, if they can renew with NBC, continue to reap some gains from the ACC for their other sports, have a clear path to a playoff spot with an expanded playoff, and then continue their kind of preferential payout they get from the CFP, because remember, they don't have to share it with any other conference members. They put that all in their pockets. I think Notre Dame will stay independent for this round.
Do you think that the big streamers, Amazon, Apple, will get involved in college football in this round?
As a primary carrier, no, but as a carrier of, say, third-tier rights, so just think non-conference football games, think some of the non-conference basketball, Olympic sports, things like that. I absolutely could see that happening for an Amazon, Apple TV. You got to remember, ESPN Plus has been doing this for years, so they are basically the Big 12's third-tier partner right now, and other than for Texas and Oklahoma.
But as far as trying to get in and be a partner with the Big Ten on a big level, or a partner with a conference, they're still going to wait that out.
I think it's not so much they're going to wait it out. I think the conferences are going to wait it out. I don't think they want to be locked into a streamer as their primary distribution source. The conferences are all about exposing the games to as many people across the country as they can, and to do that on a streamer at this point is probably not the right decision. A lot of people talked about the MLS doing this deal with Apple TV for their rights, but what you have to remember about that is what Apple bought from the MLS is basically a bunch of games that used to be on regional sports networks, and the MLS's package that's I don't even know what it's called, but it's like their Sunday ticket for soccer. But I still expect that ESPN and or Fox will end up with some sort of a linear network game of the week type deal for for the MLS. So they didn't throw 100% of their games onto Apple TV, but just certainly that's a big step for Apple. A lot of the streamers, the hard part is just getting in the door. Prime, Amazon Prime, they've been on everything, but they just have they finally they got the NFL Thursday game finally, which is great for them, and they've had a lot of product overseas, but picking up the NFL package with the Thursday night is a great step for Amazon to get in the business.
Did you ever, Bob, even have the thought process in any meetings or yourself that it could come down to two networks owning college football like divisions?
No, when I was around, not really, because at that time, really until 2012, 13, Fox only carried the college football on the cable network.
Mm-hmm.
Fox Broadcasting really didn't get involved. We had a round with the BCS, kind of like 3 and done, but until the Pac-12 and Big 12 deals that were done in 2012, 13, that range, Fox was never really, the broadcast network really carried anything. So I didn't really think that at one point. But once Fox got into the Big Ten, you could kind of see the handwriting on the wall, as the Big Ten network played out, and Fox had the broadcast package for the first time, and then ESPN threw all their weight behind the SEC, and it's clearly lining up that way. I think people should be a little hesitant on saying that these networks are controlling college football. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. Their dollars are very important to college football, and certainly the college football conference management looks to the networks before they make moves. But did Fox tell the Big Ten to go get USC and UCLA? I doubt it. Did Fox find out about it on the day that everybody else did? I doubt that too. But and the same can be said for Oklahoma and Texas. It'd be very normal for the SEC, for Greg to pick up the phone and call Burke Megas at ESPN and say, "Hey, what would this do? What does this do?" And the same thing with the folks at the Big Ten to pick up the phone and call the guys over at Fox. The same thing on USC and UCLA.
So, again, Bob Thompson Sports is with us, former executive at Fox Sports in many different ways, an incredible background with a lot of things he negotiated. When Texas-Oklahoma story popped in the SEC in late July, and then soon after that, Bob Bowlesby, the former commissioner of the Big 12, sent a cease and desist to ESPN. Does that in any way affect ESPN and the Big 12 moving forward with any kind of relationship?
I doubt it. I'm sure Bob was upset. I've known Bob for a lot of years, and I could see why he'd be upset. But like I mentioned, I don't know that it was necessarily ESPN pulling those strings. Are there conversations? Absolutely. But I really find it hard to believe that ESPN was vocally politicking for Greg Stanky to pick up the phone and call the guys at Texas and Oklahoma. Going forward now, Bob's moving on and Brett Yormark's there. And he has a relationship with ESPN through his years at the Nets and NASCAR and all these other places. And so that's kind of, to me, it's water under the bridge. There's still going to be a relationship there, I believe, with the Big 12. I think somehow ESPN's going to find a way in on the Big 10 too. How big, I don't know. But you have to remember that this is not only a football deal, but it's a college basketball deal as well. And ESPN needs tonnage from college basketball. So I really think, it's important for them to get a hold of some Big Ten basketball along with the small package of football, if not more, because Fox is not a huge outlet for the college basketball on the broadcast network. Certainly FS1, but nowhere near the extent that ESPN is.
How much poker is played between you as a CEO of a network and a conference? Is it really tense? Is it something where you're going to be a partner so you want to work together? Is it like, can you kind of explain that?
It's an interesting relationship. They want to get as much money as
they can from you, and you want to pay them as little as you have to. So it's a little, there's a little bluffing going on here and there, and everybody kind of over the years, everybody kind of gets comfortable with each other. We all know how it works, and it works pretty well. It always has. I think that some of the big bluffing games go on between the networks because, as a network, I want, ESPN or NBC to think I'm prepared to only pay X or pay X plus, and I might be able to pay more than that just because I know they want it so bad they'll pay more than what I would pay. So, and then I've got more money left. I drop out and I've got more money for another project. So it's a moving target as always, but there's a fair amount of bluffing going on. But the negotiations are always pretty collegial. And you remember Fox and ESPN have been partners on the Big 12 and the Pac-10, Big 10, Pac-12, and Big 10. Sorry, and they've worked very well. I mean, we were partners with ESPN on a network in Asia for years and years and years. So, certainly there's a healthy amount of competition. There's also quite a bit of working relationships just because we have to.
Is there any doubt, though, a conference would want as many bidders as possible? That is the goal?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if only to, whether those other bidders are not serious, it doesn't really matter. The conference wants everybody to think they are. And, there's been times I've had people tell me, I have interest from so-and-so, and then I'll pick up the phone and call so-and-so and say, are you guys, what's going on here? Are you guys actually interested? And sometimes, they might tell me yes, they might tell me no, they might lie to me. I don't know. But absolutely, the more bidders makes for a healthier negotiation and ultimately for the conferences or the leagues or individual teams, it usually results in a better payday.
There's a theory out there that there's going to be a Fox League, the Big Ten, an ESPN League, the SEC. Do you believe that the networks feel that college football, especially with a new playoff deal coming, is in a better position if, when the playoff expands, all these conferences are involved?
I think that the conferences, and I think the networks would probably agree, that more than two leagues is absolutely necessary. You can't have two conferences and really say, unless they're 28 teams each or something like that, and say that you have a really representative sample of all the collegiate football across the country. I think it's important for the Pac or for the Big Ten and for the SEC that the ACC, the Big 12, and the Pac-12, and the Mountain West, and the AAC remain relevant for college football as a whole, and for the college football playoff as a whole. So to try and get to a situation where there's just two super conferences, it may ultimately come to that. I don't know, but I think that for the better, for the benefit of the greater good in the sport, that a strong 4 or 5 strong conferences is extremely important.
Is that because
that's mostly my opinion?
Right.
That's my opinion. Other people may disagree with that.
Is there Bob Thompson again with us? Is there a possibility, Bob, that those who are making these decisions, conferences, networks, whatever, do they? You mentioned earlier about conferences do care about maybe rivalries among things. Do they really care anymore? Does the rivalries matter?
Oh, I think they do. Absolutely. I mean, you can look at, even with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC, you put back together one of the best rivalries in college football with A&M and Texas. So that certainly matters. I think pulling USC into the Big Ten, to be able to make games like USC Michigan, USC Ohio State, USC Penn State, it's hugely important for the networks and the conferences. You're still going to have the rivalry. Certainly, you're going to have USC UCLA, which is without a doubt one of the top 2-3 Pac-12 games a year. So you're still going to have that. Texas Oklahoma, same thing. You're still going to have that. It's just going to be in the SEC instead of the Big 12.
Is part of this also when people think about it and like, you know, you lose rivalries, you get new ones, but you're still a television network. If you were making a show about cops, you'd want the best cop show. If best lawyer show, you want the best football show you can have, right? So that's the best teams or the biggest brands playing each other.
Hopefully in the biggest market. Absolutely.
So, and I know we're going longer, Bob, than I asked you to go. I appreciate
That's all
that.
right. I got plenty of time.
So Rutgers, and a lot of times Rutgers gets tossed around, but, well, they're only in it because they carry New York or whatever. Is it Rutgers and New York, or is it the alumni bases from Big Ten schools who have a saturation of that market that is more important?
I think it's, the Rutgers in the TV market, the alumni is very important. But, I mean, it's not surprising if you look at, and I went through this with Jim Delaney quite a bit when we were talking about Big Ten Network and getting that started, about where all the Big Ten alumni reside. And, of course, it was New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Well, that makes sense. These are giant schools. And a lot of people who go to these schools, when they're done at Purdue or they're done at Michigan or they're done at Ohio State, they fan out just like everybody else. And it makes sense that most of them end up in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. So I didn't put a whole lot into where the alumni were. I put, our whole goal was to, gain subscribers for the Big Ten Network and to get broadcast viewers for the Fox Broadcast Network. So we're looking for the best markets that will make that happen. And it was extremely important for the Big Ten Network to be able to add subscribers in in Baltimore, D.C., and in New York, and it was very successful. And sure, college football is not top of mind in New York City, but a lot of people make the same claim about L.A. There's so much else going on there that you get the beaches, and everybody's from somewhere else, and not that many, the total population went to USC or UCLA. But, from a collegiate standpoint, those are the two programs in that market. So you're going to pay attention to them.
The ACC, you mentioned this, has their grant of rights until 2036, whatever year it might be. There has been at least discussion that there could be a way, I don't know if teams can get out of the grant of rights or not, that's always another story, but why would if in fact some of the schools there say, hey, listen, we want to renegotiate that, why would ESPN do that?
Well, I guess ultimately, if the threat of litigation was so strong, I mean, it's not going to be ESPN that's getting sued. It's not going to be ESPN. It would be the schools against the conference that somehow they have been, are falling behind as a result of the television deal that the conference entered into. But there's some ways and opened agreements in the past if someone felt they were woefully underpaid, but I, as a television network, I'm going to want something in return. So if you want more money, I want more something. And so the question is, what is that something going to be? Usually, from our standpoint, it was always we'd go for an extension and add on more years. Well, for a deal that already goes to 2036, that hardly makes any sense. So then you start thinking about what other things are there, and maybe there's, I don't know, the ownership structure of the ACC network, the ESPN Plus rights, what could be done there. I mean, there might be ways to get other money or unlock other value within the conference that's currently not being monetized with ESPN, and maybe that's something that the ACC can put forth in exchange for bumping up the annual payment. I don't see ESPN just unilaterally agreeing to shorten the deal. That would be ludicrous.
Did you ever at any time bump into Brett Yormark?
Yes, I was on the one side of a negotiation. I was doing some work for the Yes Network, and he was at the Nets.
And?
Very, very smart, very, very aggressive. He's going to, it's not going to be the Big 12 conference of Steve Hatchell, Dan Beebe, and Mr. Bowlesby. they're going to be go-getters. There's no doubt about it. I think Brett's a very fast learner, and he will have the conference moving very fast, very quickly.
Can you see him thinking outside the box, whatever the heck that might mean, with the possibility of extra revenue that some haven't really even thought much about?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you look back, and I also had some dealings with him when he was at NASCAR, and we owned Speed Channel, and I used to deal with NASCAR quite a bit. And what he was able to do to expand the popularity of NASCAR beyond, the good old boy network of the South, opened an office in New York City and did some very groundbreaking, cutting edge deals for NASCAR. Was very impressive. And the same thing with the Nets. I think a lot of people will say that arena in Brooklyn wouldn't be there without him single-handedly pushing it through. And I was not involved with any of that, but a number of my friends at the NBA are just still remark of how important he was to that whole process. So I think it's going to be good for the Big 12. I'm not saying that Bob Bowlesby was bad. Bob was a great collegiate administrator at Iowa, at Stanford, and as a commissioner, I think. But this is a time where you're trying to unlock dollars that heretofore haven't been unlocked. Brett's a great guy for that position.
So the timing of Bowlesby's retirement and the timing of what's going on with college football's landscape is perfect, you think, with your mark?
Yeah, I think it's a good change. It's not a subtle change. Some people are going to be, he's a hard charger, and some people are going to bristle at that. But I think at the end of the day, for the conference, it's a good thing.
So I don't, if you don't mind me, and again, Bob, thanks for all of your time. It's incredible. I hope I can pick your brain a little bit. You may not have wanted to give me your number. The old days of the regional networks where you kind of were cutting your teeth a little bit, Prime Sports and all that, Liberty. How much fun was that? And was it like, what was that like at the time when a lot of people didn't even know what really was going on?
It was a little wild westish. There was times we weren't sure we were going to be able to turn the lights on some days, but we continued to grow, and we grew the business responsibly and in the right markets, and continued to expand our holdings as far as the NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball games. We were lucky in that a lot of the old independent TV stations decided they no longer wanted to be in the sports business, and so we were able to pick up a lot of games from some independent stations and increase our offering. So it was great. I think when Fox came around, it was great, even better, because they wanted to expand and they had some money. So we started really going whole hog and buying things, and it really resulted in a business in the RSN business that gets a bad rap these days. But I read an article the other day that said that the baseball ratings for the RSNs are still the number one show in prime time in most networks, or in almost most markets, which is, in this day and age, is really incredible.
What was the biggest conference media deal, not with a network, but was the Big Ten Network the mother of all with what they were able to do, or the SEC? I know the ACC. Which one was the dog?
Yeah. I don't know the particulars of the SEC deal. I know for my personally, it is certainly the Big Ten Network. I mean, we paid a lot of money to get in the business. We paid a lot of money for the rights over a lot of years. I think it was a 20-year deal with a 5-year tail. You have to have that because you're creating a network around a specific conference. It's kind of hard to be the Big Ten Network with no Big Ten rights. So you made a long-term deal, and everybody's vested in the agreement. And it took us a while to get coverage and carriage for the network. First year, a lot of places didn't have the network, but by the second football season, we were able to get it cleared pretty much everywhere throughout the conference. And to this day, it's certainly one of the most widely penetrated collegiate conferences, and from a money-making standpoint, I got to think it's right up there with the SEC network.
When you were dealing with the Big 12 at all back in the day, Did you ever think or dream there would be something like the Longhorn Network and then what it actually ended up doing with college football?
Actually, I did, because Fox, we actually bid on a similar scenario with the loss, and also with in fact, we owned the rights at Fox Sports Southwest for the Sooner Network at Fox Sports Southwest with Joe Castiglione. So, yeah, we knew all that was going on. Ultimately, they wanted to expand beyond the Southwest, and we didn't really, at Fox, like that idea. So we told the lot that, thanks, but no thanks. And ultimately, they did the Big Ten or the deal with ESPN. Interestingly enough, I think it was in 2010 or 11, and Texas and Oklahoma, and I guess Oklahoma State and Texas Tech were talking about going to the Pac-12. And, I got urgent phone calls from the guys at Fox. They wanted me to get on the phone with BB because they're trying to keep the conference together. And I said, what do you mean, the conference together? And it's like, well, Texas wants this Longhorn Network, and other schools don't like it. And that's why Nebraska left, and that's why A&M is going to leave, and all that stuff. And so we got on the phone, and at the end of the day, Fox agreed to waive the rights for them to go ahead and do the network and carry the network outside of their home territory, which previous to that would have violated our agreement. And so it was something that, literally had to kept the conference from falling apart. And I was out in Wyoming doing what retired guys did at that time, playing a little golf, but trying to help keep this Pac-12 or Big 12 together. And a bunch of our guys were sitting in a bar, and I came walking in. They go, well, what happened? I go, well, I don't know. Watch ESPN. I'll probably be on the crawl in about 5 minutes. And about 5 minutes right to the minute, it runs across the bottom. Texas, Oklahoma State, Big 12, granted right, da-da-da-da-da. And they all looked at me, and I'm like, well, what do you think I've been doing out there?
Oh, my Lord. Hey,
so it was a wild ride. And, for me, I love doing it, but for anybody who's been in the sports business, and you guys know, the ton of travel. I traveled pretty much every week. I did it for almost 30 years traveling, and a lot of nights and a lot of weekends. So it's not the greatest conducive to the greatest family life. And after a while, I just got burnt out on the traveling. So didn't need to work. So I opened up a little boutique consulting firm and work when I want and play golf when I don't want to work.
It's great to be able to
That's the dream, Bob.
There you go. Bingo. Hey, thank you so much for your time. If you don't mind, block my number because I'm going to be asking you some questions. But no, it's really weird because we saw that the response, Dennis Dodd had made a comment about John Wilner's report or comment, and then next thing you know, you pop in, and it was refreshing because it's one of those, wait a minute here, and then you followed up on that, and then all the background in your history is incredible. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it very much.
All right. Nice to talk to you guys. Let me know if I can do anything else for you.
Absolutely. Bob Thompson, former Fox Sports CEO. How about the conversations? He's out trying to play golf, and then all of a sudden there's the Longhorn Network and the Big 12 and Dan Beebe and a lot of things that went on from there.
I love any interview where we can invoke the name of Dan Beebe back in the day. But, he covered it all, and to hear that there are a lot of things that I think we thought we knew, but we learned
one of the
differently.
things about ACC is that he said about why would they ever shorten it to give more money? And he basically said they probably wouldn't, which is something, Craig, you've discussed.
Mm-hmm.
But is it one of the things that does get lost here, and maybe it's just me, you don't sue the network. Florida State or Clemson or Miami or whoever, they're not going to, North Carolina, they're not going to sue ESPN. They're suing the conference.
Yeah, they would go to the conference and say, we don't like this deal anymore. That's what they'd have to.
What was Bob Bowlesby going to do?
We brought that up. I asked him about when the cease and desist, and will that in any way affect any relationship going forward with the Big 12 and the ESPN? And he said no. He did not think so, whether that's the case or not.
It's water under the bridge.
Yeah, water under the bridge is part of the negotiations. He had great comments about Brett Yormark. But some of you picked up on this when we asked him about Brett Yormark. There was a pause there. He's a different animal now, and it's completely different than anything the Big 12 has ever had run their conference, which the timing of it And Bob mentioned that probably is the perfect time for Yormark to be in the position because he will find something, not that it's never been invented before, but find ways, revenue streams that perhaps hasn't been thought of or at least discussed.
Well, and I think he has to make TV executives at least take a double, glance at the Big 12, whereas if they're working with Bowlesby again, they kind of know what's what. I mean, okay, you got new teams, but we sort of know the deal here. Now it's different. It's different because there's a different guy running the show in a different way with different ideas and, a different vision of the Big 12. So I do think that makes these negotiations a bit more interesting than if we were talking about them going into it with the same cast and crew that they've had for the last several years. I mean, this is uncharted territory, and, I think it's pretty brilliant, quite frankly, to grab a guy like Yormark, and the timing of it just makes a lot of sense. So we'll see if it pays off. I mean, I think it's definitely going to pay off more than if they just stayed status quo, that's for sure.
Some of you on the chat room, and then we break. We will have David Hellman from Cowboys Training Camp at 5:30. And a lot of comments about where they are now with the regional network, which is Bally's. Great interview, guys. Lots of good information from Bob. Cool interview, very informative. Love the segment. So much insight. Solid interview. He didn't tippy-toe around the questions. Red hot talk. I thought I knew, but the way the comment was going, I had to recheck. I think it's biscuits and gravy on. And when I asked him about Brett Yormark, when I said and he said he's a different breed now. He needs to come back when the next shoe drops, and there will be another shoe or 5 to drop with Bob Kramer. Thank you very much. And also Matt Packard. And hey, Matt, great that you're watching as well. Bob will always shoot straight, so you had better be ready, and we appreciate all that. Craig just came back from watching Baylor football practice, and, how they look out there. Right?
They can beat Baylor.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I mean, I'd say this about them. There's just a lot of confidence over there right now. I mean, I'm not trying to get too crazy. I'm not predicting national titles or anything like that, but I will say this program feels the exact way, and this is why I've been hesitant to say it because I know it's going to trigger some people, but this is mostly Baylor fans. This program feels about where it was before all hell broke loose. And if you remember where they were right there knocking and banging on the door, having already won a couple of Big 12 titles, set up very well to win some more, definitely set up to be competitive in the playoff era. And then we know what happened. I mean, Art Browse gets fired, and the whole, just program was, under a microscope and burning. And it was just a crazy, crazy time period there for a while. And, then Matt Rule comes in and does his thing, and it wasn't easy at all early on. Most people will probably just remember, the middle year, the last year, and then even the ending wasn't that great because, well, they're playing in a Sugar Bowl against what would be Georgia right before Georgia's about to go win their national title. And Georgia beat you up pretty good, but that game was really marred for Baylor fans by the fact that you wanted to enjoy New Orleans, and yet the entire time you were worried about the head coach leaving because that was the rumor all week long in New Orleans was Matt Rule was going to the NFL. The only thing we didn't know at the time was he was going to the NFL. It just wasn't the Jets. It was the Panthers.
Or the Giants.
The Giants, yeah. Well, yeah, Giants. But the Jets were also involved.
They swung and missed the year before.
Yeah, they had been there previously. But that happened, and it set up the run that Aranda's now been on. But, yeah, it feels like – I mean, you look at their O-line guys. Their freshmen are bigger than the veterans, and they're as athletic, and they look good. It's not like bad weight or anything like that. It's not clumsy. They've got some stud athletes. I mean, you look around every single position group, and you're like, yep, feel good there, feel good there, feel good there. Even if there are question marks because you lost a Jalen Petrie or a JT Woods – I think they're in much better position to reload than rebuild. I definitely don't think this is a rebuild in any way, shape, or form just because they went and won a title last year. And I think, I don't blame Baylor fans for getting super excited about this season. That's what I'm trying to say. I know it's just fall practice, but just in general, overall, I think there's a lot of reason to be excited.
Let's stop there, come back with more. Also, we'll update you again. We had John Hoover from SISooners.com on the Cale Gundy story. And we'll put up the statement from Brett Venables that was fresh from earlier today, right before the show began. We do appreciate you. 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and David Smoak. Alan Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, they have some new discounts, dealer discounts, and incentives going on for the month of August. In fact, I got a couple of them. They always have something with Ram trucks and, of course, with what they do with Jeep as well. Right now, Allen Samuels celebrating the incredible lineup of 2022 models like the Grand Cherokee L, the Renegade Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. Vehicles will bring power, style, smooth ride expect from a Jeep. The Grand Cherokee L brings you extended seating, third row. Come see what Allen Samuels has when it comes to Jeeps and SUVs that fit your lifestyle. And on top of that, the 2022 Ram trucks designed to be durable and functional, stylish, legendary award-winning trucks, back-to-back-to-back Motor Trend Truck of the Year, first-class feel, luxurious leather, trim seating, options, exceptional legroom, storage plus surround view camera. Options that you expect from a premium truck and what you get with the vehicles on the lot at Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Corral on 2nd and 15 as they're chopping down on his legs, and then they take him down high as well. Ika finished it.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Tom Albers, staying in touch with you and your money through these difficult and changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
As you know, at the end of the last segment, Craig back from practice. Jack McKenzie's still there. He'll put up all sorts of an array of everything in the premium section, and eventually the interviews after practice usually start around 6:10 or so. Couple of things from earlier today, just in case you now joined us. And a lot of times we don't have time to go back from what we started, but sometimes we should, and probably more often. So the story late last night about Cale Gundy announcing his resignation and his story on what he, in fact, was mentioning and what happened with him. And then, of course, here is the response that Brent Venables put out right before the show began and really kind of doubled down on why Cale Gundy was resigning. And in fact, the offensive word that was used, he said it multiple times and kind of goes into that. John Hoover was great and even said right now there's a lot of unrest in Norman, Oklahoma. That was the best way to probably, describe what was going on in Norman.
Yeah, and I feel for Oklahoma fans because I know this is not something you thought could ever have happened. I mean, Cale Gundy's been an institution in Norman through multiple coaching staffs, and at this point as a coach and also as a player, as was pointed out by John earlier, as we mentioned at the start of the show. And he's been a major part, a key part of all of the success that they've had over, going on 2-3 decades. So to see that news last night and see his resignation, I was just shocked. And then to dive further into it and get a very loose summary of what happened, and now for Venables to shed even a little bit more light on it, I totally get it. I know there's a lot of Oklahoma fans that are upset. They were upset when they thought it was just one word that had been read off of whatever, an iPad or a phone. But I still, even if it had been one word, I still think you just can't, if it's what we think he probably will, or in that realm of what we think he probably said, then you just can't say that type of stuff, even if it's a mistake. And then to hear that apparently it's multiple times per Venables statement, it is what it is. It sucks bad, though. I mean, I wonder how much of a hit they take. I'm not going to take Oklahoma out of the top 25 because of this Cale Gundy move, but I really do, as somebody who's been a fan for a long time and follows him pretty closely. I do think this is a major subtraction to the whole puzzle there, and not one that can't be overcome in time or even, this season to some extent. I don't think they're going to suddenly go 500 because Cale Gundy's not there, but I do think it adds a loss or two to the equation.
It's going to affect them for the next week or so, you would think, before they really even stop thinking about it, actively every day, especially if you are a wide receiver. So, that's going to affect it. Well, if the wide receivers aren't thinking straight, how does that help out Dylan Gabriel and on down the line? So there's a lot of things that'll happen with this, and Brent Venables has his work cut out for him just on the emotional side of coaching. And like John Hoover said, being the uniter that he is known to be, to do this, because no matter how, it's going to divide the locker room, because there will be some people that will say, well, he shouldn't have said any of that stuff. And then there'll be other ones well, you know what he was doing, man. And then there's that middle ground.
But there's clearly somebody that felt the need to go and say something right after that meeting was over, per what John told us. It wasn't like Venables was told about it the day later, right? I mean, it's a player, based on what he said, came to Venables pretty much right after that and let him know what had happened. And then Venables was like, "You're out. You got to go." So, Paul, I do think that there's going to be some differences of opinion between just even the players alone, much less just the fans for sure. I mean, you already see it. It's going to be a big talking point. And again, it's not the death of the program by any means, but man, you talk about just an out of nowhere, just knife to the gut. That's exactly what this is. And I wonder how much it stings. You just hope it doesn't, turn into an infection, basically.
Well, and Miguel Ramirez, thanks for the chat. Never thought about this, and that's why I love it, that sometimes you can read something that's there will probably be a lot bigger or more problems if the audio or any kind of audio or video of Gundy gets leaked by a player. And you may say, well, again, I remember one time traveling with a Division I college basketball team on the road. Baylor was playing in Ames against Iowa State, and Iowa State has that great atmosphere. And Scott Drew said, hey, I want you to go watch this atmosphere and experience it and try to explain it to everybody. And when they were going into the meetings at night, in the evening, they had to drop their cell phones in a box, like just a big box, a bin. And I'm sure there were repercussions if, in fact, somebody had a burner phone or an extra phone. So that was interesting. But I'm sure that if it was a team meeting, somebody probably had a phone, and there may be audio, maybe video. I don't know. All right, so there's that with the Brent Venables comment, or kind of more clarification than what we may have had when you went to bed or even this morning up until about mid-afternoon.
And I want to reiterate, too, or not reiterate, but I would say, too, just the timing. I mean, it felt like they were really in a good run with recruiting, and now this will be used against them in recruiting. As I mentioned earlier, there's already Texas recruits that are like, oh, my coach would never say, and they're already having to face that. So be very interesting to see how Brent Venables navigates this little landmine he walked into. No fault of his own. But, yeah, this kind of changes a lot of things.
I would push back if, again, every coaching staff has a guy who's probably a wild card, especially if you're on the staff that someone's stripper's pet monkey girlfriend or whatever.
Well, as John pointed out, Gary Patterson.
Yeah, so, so there you go.
Bobby Ryan, Oklahoma had no choice. It would have killed their recruiting.
Yeah, for
From
sure.
Bobby Ryan, it would have absolutely been used against him and still in some cases will be. So also that. Now, also the USA Today coaches poll came out. We're not going to show, we'll show there's 3 different images here. Top 5 teams, or top 3 or 4 teams: Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia. It was a matter of who's for Clemson. Notre Dame at 5. There's been discussion about whether that's too high. Michigan 6, A&M 7, getting a bump for what they've done, the recruiting, and the fact beating Alabama last year. And there's a lot of, it's the SEC. Utah, good for them at number 8. Oklahoma and Baylor at 9 and 10. In fact, you go over another page, back-to-back Big 12 teams with Oklahoma, Baylor, and Oklahoma State.
And I think that just speaks to kind of the thought process right now in the Big 12 is it's not a guarantee for anybody. And those 3 teams are all great bets. And I think you can even throw some other teams in there, K-State, Texas, whoever else you want to throw into that mix. But those are probably the 2 up next, I would think. And, yeah, I mean, I'm a little surprised A&M's that high. Again, I explained why earlier. Just the quarterback question mark. But Jimbo Fisher is your coach, and he's pretty good with quarterbacks. So, the talent level is inarguable. They've been stacking big classes, so that all makes a lot of sense. Good to see, Utah getting the deserved love as well. I mean, they're set to be pretty nasty this season with what they got coming back. So I'm excited to see them. And I wanted to say on Baylor, I was kind of explaining it a few minutes ago, but I'm not going to claim that they're going to win the Big 12 title this year. I'm not ready to do all that. I do think that road schedule that they face is the big bugaboo to this year. Like, outside of the obvious, like if guys get hurt, and like the big challenge for them this year is not living up to last year. It's going on the road multiple times to play good teams and trying to win all of those games. But there's just a confidence about this program right now, and it's like there's no questions about what's going on any level. It's set up really, really good at the moment. And I know they'll have some drop-off with the vets they lost, but I just think that Dave Aranda is right place, right time, right group of leaders, and they're going to be good this year. I don't know if it's going to be like last year record-wise and all that, but they're going to be good.
But the point where they probably become scary to everybody else and what they haven't been able to do in the past coming off of good seasons is when that schedule flips and they go on the road, it's going to more, like, I'll tell you right now, it's not even Provo, because you could drop Provo to me and still be totally fine and maybe even win the rest. I don't think that's a make or break game for either of those teams because they're both really, really good in my opinion. But for Baylor, it's not even going to be going to Norman or going to Austin. To me, it's going to Morgantown, the team that's not as talented as you, but is probably going to be better because they've got a better quarterback more than likely. They've got a new offensive coordinator, and their coach is kind of up against the wall, but in a place that's been an absolute abject house of horrors for you, no matter how good you've been and how bad West Virginia's been. Morgantown, West Virginia's been bad. So that one's pretty early in the year, or I guess it's like a Thursday, right?
Yeah.
It's a Thursday.
Is it Halloween?
Morgantown's a Thursday, like the middle of the year.
Yeah, Thursday in the middle of the year. That one's going to be the one where I think if they can go in and shake that off, that's even bigger to me than some of the other ones, because those are the things that have happened years after they've been good. You go and lose a game in Morgantown and kind of derails everything.
Yeah, I mean, they're at Provo, they're at Ames, they're at Morgantown on a Thursday, they're at Tech, they're at Oklahoma, and they're at Texas on Black Friday. I mean, that's just, if it wasn't for that schedule, I'd be saying, yeah, Big 12 champs, like for real, I would. But it's that schedule that prevents me. But I think they're good enough to go out and still go win a bunch of those games, and it won't surprise me.
And remember, on Iowa State here last year, that game came right down to it at the end, and now they're going to Ames.
They had a bunch of wins that were a single, and that's part
Texas Tech.
Hey, but if you're a dog, if you're one of those that truly believes you're a part of the conversation about what happens in January, then whether you're playing at Ames or home, or you're playing in Morgantown or not, you gotta win and sustain that type of success no matter where you're playing. And remember, 2 years ago they were terrible, and had a game at halftime where Iowa State was like, "What the hell is going on?" Okay, Garrett, did we put up the top 10? The next 10 included Oklahoma State. There's NC State. We'll have a writer to cover them tomorrow. USC 15. Pitt, which they play West Virginia early on, and that rivalry renewed. There's the Miami and Texas. We brought up the first place vote. Who knows who did that, what coach did that. And who knows? In 3 months, we might go, damn, that guy was brilliant. Kentucky, Cincinnati, future Big 12 team, along with 25, Houston, a future Big 12 team.
I think Miami is one of the teams that's probably properly rated in this. 17 with Cristobal, Tyler Van Dyke coming back. Like, that to me is about where I'd pin them in an ACC that's kind of hard to gauge after Clemson. And even Clemson's hard to gauge because they didn't have good play at quarterback last year, and they didn't have a good play on the offensive line. You would assume that most of those things will change this season at Clemson, but it's not always easy just to, in a year,
I would think
dust off the mat. But it should be for them.
More than just a bump.
And that quarterback, the change might be changing to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
If it doesn't work out, initially. I think that's a big question for them. I just have to say, looking at this poll, like, it's great to see Cincy getting some love there at the back end, even given the fact that they are losing quite a bit. But, hey, Luke Fickell's got his claws deep in. And so long as he's there, I kind of feel the same way about, with what Aranda's doing in Waco right now, that as so long as those guys stay where they are, they can create something pretty special. And obviously they both already have. But, I think it's good to see the confidence that voters have that since he can lose a lot, go to the playoff as a G5 and still be able to be a top 25 team. And they've been doing it coach after coach. I mean, they've been doing it. They deserve that respect. They've done it with multiple coaches over, multiple time periods now. But the thing I really that jumps off the page, and good for Houston as well. I think Houston's going to be sneaky good. Dana's got a good thing going on down there with some talented players. So that'll be fun to see U of H and where they kind of fit in the grand scheme of things. But where is BYU? Where is BYU?
In fact, Garrett, you have that fourth picture, an image. Those are the snubs. Okay, yeah. Those are the snubs that USA Today put up. Iowa, LSU, North Carolina, Penn State
was barely 500 last year.
Yeah, I know. And they had Hal, the quarterback, and much, much more. So those were the preseason snubs. But right below all that, you do see Brigham Young, who, if you extended it, might have been 29 or 30, whatever. So UCF was around 5 or 6 below that as well. But those were some of the teams, including Brigham Young.
BYU lost a couple guys, but they bring back their quarterback. They bring back, they got healthy at wide receiver and running back, some guys that weren't there last year. Plus, they always, because of the way that the school works, bring back guys who, they might be sophomores, but they're 21 years old. So it's a little bit of a different thing as far as maturity goes. They've got an excellent coach in Kalani Sitake. I do not see them. I don't understand why they're unranked.
No, I think Jaron Hall's going to have a really good year, and they got some other important guys that are back as well. I think Baylor caught them at the right time in Waco. That should be a battle in Provo. But, yeah, one of their biggest wins was Sitake sticking around because he definitely got a lot of love during that coaching carousel, and they ended up signing him to a new contract, which we know that is what it is. But I'm sure the attention will continue as far as, him and other programs because he's doing a hell of a job. And they've got it all set up to be really good this year. And having Baylor at home early on, that'd be a massive win for them. And they'd be in the top 25. They win that game.
Oh, yeah.
There's no doubt about, where they're going to be ranked. But, yeah, just surprised to see them snubbed like that. And I'm sure there's a good case for all those other teams, but I don't know. BYU seems kind of common sense to me for a top 25 preseason team.
Garrett, I'm about to send you a link that I want to put up here in just a second. I'm just going to put the letter S in the subject. I want you to get it up if you can. All right, before we do that, here is a picture that Jack McKenzie I guess I was at practice. It was on Friday or Saturday. That's Cole Maxwell.
That's some strong beard game he's got.
That's a man right there. That is a man, a grown, man.
Yeah.
And he's been around. Craig, is this his 5th or 6th year, Maxwell?
Yeah, it's 5th or 6th.
He's been through injuries and all that. And then last year you kind of saw the light come on along with others. And he's just sitting there, Jack McKenzie. That's a guy I would not want to meet in a dark alley or even a real well-lit alley.
No, and he had a big sack in the Sugar Bowl, one of the 9. So.
Yep. Okay, that's good. Thanks to Jack McKenzie. He's got all sorts of great stuff in the premium section. Now, here is, you don't have it yet. It doesn't have to be a tweet. I can mention this as well. Brett Yormark is in Fort Worth today. He's on the TCU campus today. Remember back when he was introduced, he said he was going to go attend or go visit all 10 of the Big 10 or Big 12 conferences, campuses. Today he's in Fort Worth. I don't know who's next. You can get on a plane. I'm sure he's got one. They can get him anywhere he wants. But he was Mark Cohen. There it is. Mark Cohen, who's the media relations director at TCU, confirmed it with me that he was on the TCU campus, kicking off his tour as he promised when he was introduced in July.
I got pick'em odds that they're taking him to Joe T. Garcia's.
I don't think of every comment story. You mean?
Where are you going? If they want him to get to know the town, they're going to take him to Joe T. Garcia's.
That's great. I'm just
saying.
Yeah,
that's the place you go when you're in the Fort Worth for the first time. It's an excellent Mexican restaurant. It's world famous. Apparently not, because you didn't get what I was saying. So.
No, I do understand what Joe T. Garcia's. I'm just thinking it's kind of a business trip. But yeah, if you want to do the atmosphere of any town, whether it's going to be Manhattan, Ames, or Waco, or whatever, you want to maybe go to the place that's going to give him the flavor.
Look, if you're going to roll out the red carpet, you're not just going to bring in sandwiches to every meal. You're gonna show them the town. Like we need to do well here in Waco. I'd want them to enjoy the place.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Good luck in Lubbock. Now they close the 50-yard line down.
Not sure if it's like a 6, 8, 10, 12 hour, spend the night and go somewhere else or not, but he's in Fort Worth today. 5:34, David Hellman, DallasCowboys.com is next. Ideal MRI. Couple of great stories that Dr. Rob Maxey, who's a partner with Ideal MRI, has shared with me, and also I have shared with you, and I love sharing it. Woman had a problem with her knee. Needed to get an MRI. The office and the insurance wanted her and told her she had to get it at a hospital system. $1,600 is what it would cost. That includes her insurance. She called Ideal MRI. She was pretty upset, didn't know if she could get any kind of a reduction or at least a discounted price. It's $497 every single time or less at Ideal MRI. In fact, she did get the MRI for her knee. In fact, it also saved her about $1,100. $497 instead of what would be $1,600. The local doctor had access to the images online immediately. Also, the story that we told you about, a lady that needed her lumbar spine MRI. $6,000 was her deductible on her insurance policy. They wanted to charge her $2,000. She went to Ideal MRI, and not only did she get the $497 rate, but also got a deduction because of her insurance. She paid less than $230 of that. So think about that. She saved $1,800 of what would have been a $2,000 MRI. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas Marketplace. They will save you money. Get the evidence you need on the muscle or whatever is bothering your ligament at IdealMRI.com.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built built for you, red, white, and blue. Have Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Have Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Have Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist's office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com. Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive. It's a staple of the Waco economy. And you're about to approach this time of the year where you have the holidays, special gifts. It's not that you don't have that every single day. What are some of the things you have coming up?
We kind of call ourselves the wedding ring store. We do all of our own custom work in-house. I've got 2 expert jewelers on staff every day. We can make anything from scratch. We kind of pride ourselves, probably 9 out of 10 every engagement ring we do is actually made custom to what the customer wants.
People look at that, oh my God, I can't afford it. I can't afford something like that. You've shown me examples that you could fit pretty much any budget.
It doesn't cost any more to custom make something. You still have gold, you still have diamonds, and you still have labor. Best thing about a custom piece is if you have any old jewelry or heirloom jewelry or something passed down from a grandma or somebody, we can take that jewelry and use it towards your wedding ring for the sentimental value, and then you've got the product, and then it's just a little bit of labor and a little bit of design on your part of what you actually want.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
First and goal. He's found 5 different targets. He's going to hand it off. It's Pollard, and he's across for the Dallas touchdown.
It's time for our weekly segment with David Hellman of FoxSports.com.
David is, he just texted me. The media was given an opportunity to have a chance to visit with Will McClay, who is the, Paul Director of Player Personnel?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's important. That's what he does, covers the Cowboys, so not available at this particular time.
The Cowboys seem to have forgotten that kicker was important.
They went through a stretch where, Jimmy would go through them. They'd hit a hot kicker, and then they'd go through another one. And they've been pretty fortunate.
Yeah, their philosophy used to be they were never going to sign a kicker to a second deal. So if you sign your first deal with them, then they would go and, it went through, and then they went through a while, and then they had Dan Bailey forever, and that was wonderful. And talk about, I'll say this, all the players that they wasted a Super Bowl on, or not getting a Super Bowl on, Witten, DeMarcus Ware, Romo, like all those guys. Dan Bailey's got to be in that list because for a time, Dan Bailey was the most accurate kicker who ever kicked in the NFL, and they weren't winning games. It wasn't because of Dan Bailey.
Yeah.
Dan Bailey was always doing his job. So, yeah, Dan Bailey had one of the best kickers in the league at the time and didn't do anything about it. Kind of like the Ravens may disappoint, even though I love what the Ravens do. If the Ravens don't get a Super Bowl with Justin Tucker, that's a waste of a kicker.
What happened with him? Was there something that happened with him today?
Contract extension.
Okay, that's what it. Okay,
Yeah.
I've been in and out.
4-year deal.
I saw him suddenly posted all over my timeline. I figured that's probably what it was. But yeah, if he doesn't get a Super Bowl when all's said and done, that would be
Justin Tucker is he the greatest kicker?
I mean, I guess he had one, right? No, was he there the first time? Yeah,
that's what I was about to look. I think he got one.
Is he the greatest clutch kicker in pro football history? Because, I mean, you could name 20, and so we don't do that. When we say the greatest, it needs to be a short list. Vinatieri, it'd be hard to beat him.
I don't know. I think he's on his on the trajectory to. If he continues his career, I mean, he's got several seasons left if he even wants it. But I think Justin Tucker continues on the track that he's on. He's going to have a great argument, honestly.
He's got an unbelievable resume. Paul, Joe Tease is overrated on the chat room.
Yeah, I mean, look, I get it. It's talked about a lot, but I'm just thinking of the places that they would. And there's nice steakhouses there. I mean, they could really roll them out there.
So and that's in reference to Brett Yormark being in Fort Worth.
Yeah, I knew Justin Tucker won when they beat the 49ers. Yeah. Was it Kaepernick? Yeah, the Kaepernick 49ers run, and 34-31. Justin Tucker got a Super Bowl then.
Yeah, they just haven't done it. It's Jonathan Garbe, who was at Texas Tech, and Liam Haralaju.
Whatever you say.
And, they're bringing in guys they're bringing Brett Maher back for a tryout today. So
Nebraska?
Tomorrow, yeah.
He's a cut.
He was a
really good college kicker. He's pretty good at Philadelphia.
He was with the Cowboys before and missed a crap load of kicks. So,
because he's, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Justin Tucker had a field goal, had a 19-yarder to put them up 31-23. And then he had a 38-yarder that put him up 34-29, and they ended up, winning a very close game there that was 34-31 because then there was the blackout. That was that Super Bowl where there was like a half hour of, no play. So that was that wild. But, he played a huge role in that and deserving of a contract extension. I don't mean to keep circling back, but I wanted to make sure I got that all squared away.
All right, so the SMU story that we discussed a little bit earlier today about the collective, the Boulevard Collective. So Texas Tech, and that was impressive, $25,000 for 85 scholarship players and also some walk-ons. Now SMU says $36,000, so you know what we're seeing here, right? So someone's got to do more than that, right?
Yep.
So are we going to get, we've seen where maybe, or at least reported, some have gotten six figures. Saban said that about Bryce Young a year ago. And we've heard all the other stories about either recruits or players. 25 to 36 in a matter of maybe a month. It's going to be 45, or it's going to be 60, it's going to be 100. Where's this? It's not going to end, is it? And I'm not against it, but you just wonder how much it can go.
Is somebody going to have $8.5 million a year? To pay everybody
$100,000.
To give everybody $100,000.
Yeah, I think there's clearly a market for that.
But
who's desperate enough.
Yeah,
I think that it's part certainly helping athletes and doing the right thing by them and giving them opportunities. But I think it's also foolish to think that this isn't those same boosters from years and years ago that were giving Eric Dickerson, a Trans Am across the country that were holing up guys in hotel rooms the night before signing day and all the other things that have happened that are just now out in the open that we just pretended didn't happen for the longest time. I don't think that's going away. I think, if anything, it's clearly reignited SMU's fan base to be like, all right, we can pay now. Let's go pay. Let's go get ourselves in the Pac-12 or the Big 12. Let's go, balls to the wall here. And so, no, it's not going anywhere. It's just starting.
Yeah.
And, I think to what extent you ask, I don't think we're going to get to the point where every dude's making at least, $1.4 million or, some NFL style situation, but I don't know how far off we're eventually going to be from that. I mean, clearly there's going to have to be a stopping point because the colleges themselves are, I think the big issue, and we brought it up here a few times and now I've seen it started to kind of circulate elsewhere, is when you need to fix that stadium or you need to feel like you need to build something out. Like I go over to Baylor just a second ago, and their entire football parking lot is under construction because they're about to extend their outdoor practice fields, and they're going to extend extend the indoor practice field to 100 yards. Well, I mean, those projects are still going to pop up. So, when schools go to look for money for alums and alums suddenly don't have $500,000 for that indoor extension because they spent $500,000 on your football team to pay players a certain amount per year, that's what's going to get really squirrely. And that's what there's going to have to be some hard decisions on for the program or for the player. You know what I mean? And I guess for the player it would still be for the program overall. But, yeah, money's going to run out at some point. Like, you can only pay so much or only have so much. And yeah, I think you're going to have to start getting into situations where it's like, do we do facilities or we put more on the payroll?
And the other thing is the market will shift and things will change. And it could be, a decade of people saying, look, we're going to pay for the players all we want. But if you realize, like, we're paying for all these players and we've got diddly squat to show for it, then when do you stop? When do you say, like, okay, well, that's it because it doesn't work? And that I think will be kind of a big shift altogether because it'd be all these business people that are doing it going, wasn't worth it for pay for the recruits.
I asked
sunk a lot of money down people.
I asked a donor. It's a school in the Big 12. It's not Baylor. I'll tell you that. But I did talk to him. I said, so what happens? You pay $50,000, $100,000, whatever you do. You donate money, sometimes even more to whatever. What will you now do if you had to pick and choose? And he didn't know yet. He didn't say, I don't know that answer. He goes, but Texas will be here long after a lot of these players are gone.
Right.
So he wants to, if he's going to donate, he wants to donate to the history.
Sure.
Forever, not just somebody for 2, 3, or 4 years.
Yeah, you just want to chip in on Quinn Ewers for a quick buck, and then I guess people who have that luxury of having those decisions, I don't know what that's like.
No,
I'm not one of
either.
them. I'm not being asked to donate anything because I don't have anything to donate. So, that's a luxurious problem to have. That's definitely a first world problem. Is what do I spend my millions on? The players on the football team I love, or the facilities on the football team I love? So yeah, that's. What a problem to have. But I do wonder, like I said earlier, how much do you want to see that return on your investment? I think people who are pitching in at Texas Tech or Iowa State or whatever, like I think in Tech's case in particular, they feel that momentum and they feel like they've got to capture it right now because this is as good as it's going to get unless Joey McGuire makes it even better, right? But there's also a chance that Joey McGuire's not the guy they think he is in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and they've got to go. So they want to have it as good as it can possibly be, and they're going to support it. And SMU's doing that too. But if SMU is still sitting in the American Athletic Conference in 5 years, and there's no hope on the horizon for them to enter into whatever the landscape looks like at that point, whether it's a Power 2 or a Power 3 or no power at all, and it's whatever, is that still scratching your itch? Do you still want to pony that up if it's guaranteed you're only going to be playing, the American schools for a non-national you know what I'm saying? Like, what do you want in return, I guess, is what you want. So
I still think it would be interesting to have somebody on, and I guess I don't think you have to do it anonymously, like one of those dark out interviews when they had the voices change. What are the details of NIL? I still don't know if anyone has ever said, Paul Catalina, I'm going to pay you $50,000 a year, which is, again, probably not much, but I'm going to pay you $50,000 a year. But it's contingent on you staying 4 years or you being a starter. You get a percentage if you're a starter, if you're injured. I don't know how that'll work.
Yeah, I don't know. And
if a player bolts after 1 year.
But they probably bolt because they know they can get it somewhere else, too.
These people who have the money, businesses or other, they're not idiots.
No.
Now, they can get their egos, ahead of them.
I would really like to just talk to John Ruiz and ask him, okay, so you've signed all these guys to sponsorship deals, especially the transfers they brought in, like Nigel Pack, right, in basketball. What if he sucks? Like, what do you do? How many guys would have to fall for you to realize this isn't it wouldn't be worth it. Now, Nigel Pack's probably a good investment, right? You bring him in, you saw that. But how many recruits do you do? How many recruits are not worth it?
Yeah, I think that, again, luxurious problem to have for those involved. Yeah. I think, too, that those are smart business people for a reason, and they realize that not every investment is going to see a massive return. So, yeah, they might strike you out and spend $500,000 on guys who don't end up making all that much of a difference, but if that eventual deal worth however much that's worth for that one guy that does make a difference does hit, well, that's all you were looking for to begin with. So you might strike out a little bit before you hit it big. But, yeah, if you continuously strike out, like, again, with the SMU example, one of the guys involved said, ready or not, the Pony Express 2.0 is coming, which I don't think that really strikes fear in anybody. But, you know, certainly it's a statement, and SMU is going to play the game along with everybody else. You know, then we'll see how it goes. But if, again, like I said, 4 or 5 years from now, you've been paying everybody $36,000 per year for a $4 million total or what it is, we get down the road and you spent $20 million on roster payments alone. You know this guy's probably paying for other stuff too, but that's just alone, you know, $20 million, and they're sitting in the American and have won one conference title. Was it worth it? I mean, that's up to the person whose money it is, I guess.
Yeah, I guess my question is if you spend $20 million on Ryan Perlews,
yeah,
you know, like what happens?
You lose your money and he either pays off or doesn't.
He would have been one that was probably some sort of a bidding war. From Tony, it's a venture capital model. You know, some or most will fail.
Yeah.
But Craig nailed it perfectly. Tony Altamar, thanks for the chat.
Frankly, when you're these people who have this amount of money to be able to throw around like that, I mean, it's not like we're thinking about it much differently. You know what I mean? They're going to burn it on something. Might as well, you know, burn it on your favorite football team if that's what you're looking at, rather than a new yacht or something along those lines.
TJ Harris, what if they offer a ludicrous amount like $100,000 per year, but make it payable after 3 or 4 years? Well, that was Mike Leach's idea. You could either be a student athlete or you can be a professional college player, and you pick one or the other. And if you stick to those guidelines at the end of the year, and again, he just threw out a number, if you were the student athlete, at the end of 4 years, you're done, you get $150,000 in your pocket. If you're a pro or you pick the pro side, you can get cut. There'd
be give and take, not just take. Yeah. But yeah, I think I'll say this about SMU because I know we got to go. Good on them. I mean, they're seeing the opportunity and the door cracked open to go and make a big impact, and they just dunked on Tech in a roundabout way.
They've been laying in the weeds for 37 years.
They have. And, then they started to get better at football these last few years. The coaching staff's changed a little bit, but, have had some success and, have put some good players out there. I think, won some fun games. So I think that they see that there's a little bit of momentum, and you got Rhett Lashley in there now taking over for Sonny Dykes, hopefully keep that momentum going. And it's obviously very fertile recruiting ground. Like you mentioned a year ago, Big 12 looked at them and stewed on him a little bit as far as an expansion candidate. Clearly the Pac-12 is probably at least kicking the tires on them. So they see the timing is – it's now or never. Let's go all in and, pony up, and kudos to them for doing that.
Literally pony up. Someone asked about what David Stanley may think. He's the linebacker who had a lot of problems, drug rehab, in and out. He was the one that was a part of that a part of the Dale Hansen investigative report. He passed away, died in his sleep back in 2005. 5:55, Paul Catalina's Top 5 is next.
This month, Allen Samuels is having the Make This the Summer event on the new 2022 Ram trucks. Designed to be durable, functional, and stylish, these legendary award-winning trucks give you that first-class feel. Luxurious leather-trimmed seating options, exceptional leg room and storage, plus surround view camera options that you'd expect from a premium truck. Come see our selection today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com. Allen Samuels in Waco, the place to shop for Ram trucks.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon-wrapped filet. And, of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, behind the bank.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
One day we're going to have this John Wick versus Equalizer.
It's not
debate.
even. It's not even a debate. It's not.
It's not.
All right.
It's really not.
John Wick, the Equalizer, or Jason Bourne in a cage match, who would win?
Well, Equalizer's done. He's done.
John Wick.
Yeah, John Wick.
It's really simple, actually.
Yeah, Jason Bourne can hang around for a little longer.
We're going to put a poll up tomorrow. John Wick, Jason Bourne, the Equalizer.
It's John Wick.
Yeah, I mean, I see that you throw Bourne in there because you want to try to, water down the voting, because this all of a sudden Bourne wasn't mentioned until we came on air. The whole time it was Equalizer versus John Wick. And that's not even a question. It's not even a question.
Denzel would beat what's his name?
No, he
Keanu?
wouldn't. And I got to go to practice again, so let's go.
All right. Top 5 coaches poll underrated teams. Number 5, NC State at 13. I think you can bump them up a little bit more. Granted, I think Clemson might be a little too high at 4. Not that they shouldn't be in the top 10 or 12, but sometimes maybe don't just give them the benefit of the doubt. Make some of these. I think the only 3 teams that have earned the benefit of the doubt are Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia. Everybody else, to me, has a little less benefit of the doubt in that set. And I think NC State is going to be the team that Clemson worries about the most this year in the ACC.
Yeah, well, man, they got the quarterback. That's a good starting point. Got a good coach as well. Devin Leary, ACC preseason player of the year. They're obviously getting a little bit of respect. I mean, to be top 15 right out of the gates. But, yeah, I think it's like, well, it's Clemson and then who else? And it'll be curious to see, but they certainly I was surprised to see them as high as they were, because I feel like they've kind of been getting slept on a little bit, but I think that's actually respectable. I don't think that they're so good that you go like, yeah, they're top 5. Let's get crazy. But top 13, let them earn a little bit more. That's fine with me.
Yeah. Number 4, Utah at 8. I would actually have them above Notre Dame right now. I think this Utah team has done more than the Notre Dame team to prove that they need to be in the top 5. And I think Notre Dame's going to be very good. But I think Utah at 8 is a little bit underrated for them.
Notre Dame was 5. A&M was 7.
Mm-hmm. I would put them over A&M
Michigan was 6.
I sure as hell put them over A&M.
Yeah.
Like, how are they not in front of A&M?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not trying to bash on the Aggies, but like that one to me, yeah, right away, that's a no-brainer. I'm trying to pull the top 25 back up. I had it earlier to see who all they were behind, but
no, it was Michigan at 6, A&M at 7.
Okay, yeah.
Notre Dame was 5.
I'd have them, probably a couple spots higher.
Yeah.
For sure over A&M.
Yeah,
I'd have to look more at Michigan. I haven't studied them a ton, but yeah.
Yeah. Number 3, to me, Arkansas at 23. Like, I'm glad that they're in the poll at 23. It's good for Arkansas that they're getting preseason ranked, but I think they might be better than the 23rd ranked team in the country. Now, granted, they lose Traylon Burks, and that's a huge loss to that offense, but I really like what Sam Pittman's doing there, and I think this is a team that's going to finish higher than 23rd in the country. I really do.
If they were in a different conference, there'd probably be a lot more talk about them, right?
Yeah.
Or I mean, more than there is out there. But yeah, I mean, they seem like they've been in a good groove now. I just think anytime it's the SEC and it's not somebody named like 2 or 3 of the teams, like in this case it'd be Alabama and Georgia for starters, then yeah, it's a little bit harder to kind of I guess earn your ranking or earn your mark. I don't know. I just feel like because they're in the Western Division, it's automatically assumed that they're going to have at least a couple of losses. But no, I expect them to be very good. Kendall Briles back at it again with that offense, and should be fun defensively as always. So yeah, I think Arkansas is going to be pretty fun.
Yeah. Number 2, Kentucky at 21. Look, this is the best Kentucky team they've had coming back in a long time. Will Levis, the quarterback. It's Levis, right? Not Levis. Levis. Will Levis. The quarterback coming back. This is the most hyped they've been at quarterback. They're in the SEC East, so the only team that they really have to worry about in front of them that's really scary is Georgia. Everybody else is in the same kind of pack altogether, Tennessee and Florida and, well, I mean, that's probably about it in the SEC East as far as teams that you worry about jumping up and biting you. Mark Stoops has slowly but sure, I don't want to say slowly, but steadily built up that team there at Kentucky. And I think 21's a little too low. And part of this is that I think Texas is a little too high. So I think both Arkansas and Kentucky and my number 1 team should all be ranked over Texas. And that, I like what Kentucky's got coming back. I really do.
Yeah, they've done a good job of building up that program. And I just think that, again, it's an SEC team. You kind of figure out where they're going to fit into the big picture. Yeah. But, I mean, in the East, for starters, they're behind Georgia. That's number 1. Tennessee, I know there's a lot of expectations for them. And outside of that, not so much. I mean, because I don't think anybody's really expecting a whole ton out of Billy Napier in year 1 necessarily. He's got some work. Like, I think people think he'll be successful, but it's not right away. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, Kentucky's right in that mix behind Georgia. With Tennessee, I'd say primarily for, runner-up in that division, but certainly a top 25 team to start off with and somebody you're not overlooking on your schedule by any means. So, yeah, it's been cool to see Kentucky have this rise here under Stoops.
Yeah, and number 1, Houston at 25. Yeah. Way too low for Houston. This is a team that really rolled through the last part of last year really well, got a lot back. Look, I'm not telling you that they're going to win a national title, but I think they're going to be a lot higher than 25 at the end of the year. This one to me just reeks of whether they AAC, let's put them at 25.
Well, that's probably true, and perhaps right off the top, the Texas Tech game, we'll find out something pretty quickly. Houston has UTSA on their schedule as well. Is that correct? That's not going to – that they are underrated.
Do they? I don't think
I thought they did.
No, UTSA plays Texas early on, but I mean, they might. I don't know. You just do that. I don't know. But go on.
No, go. Yeah. You guys can just discuss if you want.
I think that this is going to be a good team this year that's better than 25th. And, maybe I'm a little on the Tim Brando scale of where do you want – are you rating them right now, or shouldn't you be rating them where you think they're going to be at the end of the year? I like his methodology a little bit better. So, I think they're going to be better than the 25th team in the country. Yeah,
they open up with UTSA, and then they play Texas Tech.
Okay, didn't know that was the first game. That'll be awesome then. Yeah, that'll be a good
both on the road.
That'll be a good tell then, and maybe that's part of the reason why is just because people look at the beginning of that schedule. But no, I think that Houston's going to be really good. I hate that Alton McCaskill got hurt because he was a damn good running back last year that probably not a lot of people knew about, and he was going to be really freaking good this year and tore his ACL. So that's a real dadgum shame. But you got Clayton Tune back at quarterback. He's a long mainstay veteran at this point. I mean, guy's been playing for like 6 years. So, yeah, love their skill talent. Would really have loved it with McCaskill, but they're Holgerson's got a good. He made a good move. I know West Virginia fans, obviously have beef, but he's set up well in Houston, and it makes sense.
I know on the road in San Antonio and in Lubbock to Houston's is still kind of a longer plane ride, but they leave the state of Texas 3 times to go to Memphis, Navy, and East Carolina, and that is really favorable when you're not going to be taking long trips over the year.
And in the American Conference, there's always a couple of teams each year that rise are better, like Baylor was last year in the Big 12. They'll have a couple of teams who will be better than maybe you think, and that's the way it is, I guess, really in all conferences. All right, thanks to Levi Caraway, Emery Winter, also Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie. He and Craig will be at practice. The post-practice interviews that will start here, in fact, any minute now. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, thank you, all of you. The chat room, text line, Matt Packard, I got your message. I'll be in touch. Our incredible sponsors, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.